You are listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So, if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or his Substack. Or simply buy him a coffee with a one-off donation, links to which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get on with the show.
I trust you.
You shouldn't. I'm a doctor.
Well, don't say that.
Do you trust doctors these days?
Yeah. No. They're my doctors.
No, the reason why I like that, it's a nice green jumper. I used to have a jumper like that. And it just reminds me of that time in my life. You know, you have funny things like sounds and smells bring back memories.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that jumper. I'm like, I remember that green jumper of mine. I remember where I was then. That time in life.
Backwards and forwards.
Johnny Vedmore. Johnny. Right, Johnny, listen, we've got so much that we can talk about. Like, you're like a bit of an encyclopedia. And on the drive here, I was like, what are we going to talk about? And you're like, well, whatever you want. And I was like, no, well, what do you want to talk about? And you came up with a lot of stuff. And I'm going to throw out one of them, right? So I'm under the belief that we now live in a uniparty system, and we might have now for decades, but the kind of like the facade of it is like literally just falling down. We can see the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. It's all uniparty system. But you're explaining to me the mechanism behind the uniparty system, and you talked about third wave politics, which I've never heard about. Let's dive in there. What the hell is third wave politics, buddy?
Well, it's third way rather than wave. If you want to go with third wave, then you're around the same period as this was created, but you're within feminist movement. Wave feminism was something which is something I'm looking into at the moment, actually.
Really?
But third way was, I wasn't expecting to do an article on the third way. I didn't even know what the third way was, but I was working with a guy who was a researcher, who's a really clever guy, Darren Kenton. He's a really nice fella, and he was really interested in Fabianism and Fabians, and he was basically going from one Fabian to another and trying to understand what Fabianism is and what their effect is.
You know, I keep hearing about Fabianism. Sorry for interrupting.
That's good.
But in this conversation, I like going off in little tangents, go off there and then come back again. Right, Fabian, I hear about that all the time. Now, all I know about Fabian is it's been around a long time, closely associated with the Labour Party. A lot of people, including Keir Starmer, are Fabians, and it's related to something like Marxism, basically. It's communism. It's communism, all flowered up in a nice way. Can you tell me what is Fabian?
Oh, okay. So Fabianism, yeah, it's like slow cook socialism. Communism will lead you to a socialist government, and so will Fabianism. But communists will lead you there with permanent revolution. You know, that's what Marx talked about, Trotsky talked about, Lenin talked about, was this idea that we've got to constantly be, the working class are constantly in revolution against the ruling class. Fabians...
So one stop, but if you got into power, you've won the revolution. How can you then have another revolution within that revolution? Surely that
revolution is never over. Never over.
But you got rid of the ruling class, so what?
And the new ruling class will rise to the top. So, I mean, this is... But there's a lot of different thinking about this. You know, when I mentioned Marx, Lenin and Trotsky there, and none of those agreed with each other on what revolutionary spirit behind communism was meant to achieve and how it would achieve it. But they did all understand that the best way to achieve some sort of socialism would be to get the working class to revolt against the bourgeoisie, the people who are at the top, mainly the capitalists, and that could be more easily done in poorer countries. Fabianism looks at things in a different way. It's like slow cook socialism, so you don't see it happening. You are definitely a frog in hot water that's heating up. And
that's more sinister.
Yeah, much more sinister. And this we can go into third way politics via this, because I mean we were looking into all these different Fabians, and one of the people who really followed Trotsky was Tony Blair. he believed in a lot of what he said, including things like permanent revolution, having that permanent revolution going, but at a slow pace. And he talked about this. He actually, I think it was in letters to Michael Foot, the leader, back in about 1982 to 1984, where he's writing and he's talking about how he leans more towards Trotsky when it comes to this sort of socialist thinking. But really, Fabianism is a way to introduce socialism without people realizing it's being introduced. And the end result leads, of course, something that we understand now, like some form of globalism, some form of global socialist government that is akin to the World Economic Forum, where you own nothing and you're happy. That really is where we're heading towards with Fabianism. But Fabianism has very famous people who were Fabians, like George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, Rudyard Kipling, even Roald Dahl was a Fabian. A lot of people,
wow,
literature within literature were Fabians, and they really wrote about the ideas of what Fabianism and socialism would lead us to if it goes wrong. So 1984 was kind of like that. It was kind of like, Fabian wet dream. Same as Brave New World, Fabian wet dreams.
So I've just looked up Tony Blair's letter. Unfortunately, it's hidden behind a paywall on the Telegraph, the full text. Apparently, it's a 22-page letter. What the frack? Dear Michael, read this in a quiet moment if you have any nowadays, and don't, for goodness sake, bother to reply. I was very hesitant in writing. You might consider it either an impertinence or sycophancy. It isn't meant to be either. And he goes on, but I can't read the rest. It's behind a paywall. 22 pages is a lot.
Tony Blair was trying to convince the Labour elite that they needed to change their form of politics and their form of socialism to be something that leads towards globalism. At the same time, Tony Blair was also being inducted into what you could say would be United States sort of Department of Defense, Rockefeller-esque, or at least founded programs that were like the International Visitors Leadership Program that him and Gordon Brown went to twice during that period, and they were being indoctrinated into the globalists, really.
Hold on one second. So I've got something. So Tony Blair isn't the only new Labour figure with a far left past. The former PM's Trotskyism was shared by Alistair Darling and Alan Milburn. Isn't he the Manchester mayor?
I'm not sure.
While Peter Mandelson and John Reid were communists. Holy frack.
Yeah, Andy Burnham's a Manchester.
Andy Burnham, that's it. But you know what? Trotsky was Georgian Jew who then, I think, moved to, the Soviet Union. But he went, abroad, was funded abroad, came back. He was talking about international communism. He wanted to spread communism to the whole world. Mm-hmm. And Lenin was a national communist. And he was like, no, sod this. We're just going to focus on Russia and the Soviet Union. And we're going to focus. And there was a big rivalry. And then Trotsky and his supporters there was a famous trial in the 1930s. And they kind of like ejected all the Trotskyists. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think that came down to their views on permanent revolution, because once you're in power, once Lenin had sealed power, they were like, we don't really want our people to now be so revolutionary because we can't control them.
Yeah, we're happy now. We consolidated it.
Where Trotsky and permanent revolution within communism was more aimed at countries that were poor. Impoverished. And that's where when Lenin took over, that's where Russia was. Russia was at were about to go through a brief civil war. Were at the poorest they had been, and a lot of it was about them trying to work out how to put the praxis, how to put them into practice, how to put communist belief into an ideology into practice to get the landowners in Russia to really start using that land to produce.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, the problem is you had all these people in the Communist Party who knew nothing about growing anything, taking the land away from landowners, giving it to the people, but then the people then had to put it into a collective, which was government owned. didn't know how to grow anything, and then they went through famine. It was just disaster, and every communist country who did that, Mao did the same. I mean, communism killed over 100 million people. It's an absolute joke. But I think the main thing was also Trotskyists were international communists. They wanted to spread this whole communism around the world. So let's go back to Fabian, Tony Blair, Trotsky. I mean, anyone who's a Trotsky, get me right, I don't think these people change their colors or their spots. They're like leopards and cheetahs. Like, they've got these spots. They never really change, do they? Fundamentally.
No, of course they don't. They are totally on board with the new world order, creating a globalist society. That's what they really want to do. That's what they're looking. But there's people, I at one point I was wondering whether someone came to me and said that even Boris Johnson was a Fabian. And
wow,
that made me go, all right, it's not just on the one side. But let's get back to third way politics. It's massively important to understand what happened to our modern world when Clinton and eventually Blair took power. Because they incorporated something that would lead us towards their goals and a globalist society. What third way politics does is it purges. It is established in a left-wing party. It purges the left of the party, as we've seen with Corbyn as well. Labour's continue to do this. They purge, and it brings the left wing into the centre. Not the centre-left, the centre. And that forces the right-wing parties, the more conservatives, to compete in the current electoral systems by also moving to the centre ground. Now, you end up then with a uniparty. You end up with two parties that are indistinguishable from each other, have purged their left and right, and you end up with a resurgent left, which can be used as a scapegoat to why everything's wrong, and a resurgent right that can be used as scapegoats to why everything's wrong. So, you can say, oh, look at these evil far-righters, oh, look at these evil far-lefters, and both parties can use that and sit in the centre with power. But the problem is that all political solutions are either on the left or the right of politics. There's nothing in the centre to fill the gaps that are left up with the lack of political solutions that are in the centre ground. They fill it with austerity, they fill it with perpetual war, and they fill it with a national security state. And that's what we see happening all around us. Tony Blair made it quite clear, Bill Clinton made it quite clear in 1992 when he's running for office, he is a third way, centre ground politician, full stop. And at that time, Yvette Cooper is working for Bill Clinton's campaign. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown are over on the Clinton campaign watching everything going on. They go back to John Smith and say, we gotta put in this, we gotta enact third way politics. This is the future. And John Smith says, I'll have none of that effing Clinton stuff over here. Thank you very much. A couple of years later, he's dead.
Did he die under such funny circumstances?
Well, you could say that. I wasn't able to find anything that was conclusively.
It was convenient, though, wasn't it, that he died?
Yeah. And he was
popular.
His life. Yeah, he had a heart attack I think it was in the late 80s. And he had changed his entire life. He went hiking regularly up in the Monroes. He'd lost a load of weight. He had changed his diet. And one day in his kitchen, years later, he's leader of the Labour Party, and he died of a heart attack sudden. It was during a time where it was very convenient for him to die because that meant that the new brass took over.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
The people who were studying third way politics over in America included Ed Balls, who was hanging around with Larry Summers and Robert Reich, who Larry Summers was linked with Epstein as well, with Jeffrey Epstein. You had the 1992-1993. There's a lot going on in the globalist stage. The World Economic Forum is reforming its base, and they're creating the precursor to the Young Global Leaders
Did
program.
they have the Accords as well? The Climate Change Accords came out?
Yeah, that's all happening around 1992. You got the Rio conference happening. Morris Strong busy pushing the agenda along with the others, and a load of these guys, they all came from the same place. They all came from the mixers in Harvard with Kissinger back. I mean, all of what we saw with Klaus Schwab and the creation of the Young Global Leaders was Kissinger's international seminar. Originally, Kissinger created this Young Global Leaders program, which was to create global leaders. It started in 1950, 1951. Again, another Fabian, William Yandell Elliott, who's one of the most important people nobody knows about. He was advisor to 6 presidents during his time.
What was his name?
William Yandell Elliott. You can't handle the Yandell. He is the top dog. He was extremely influential. And Kissinger wrote to Yandell Elliott at one point and said it should be called Yandell Elliott's International Seminar rather than Kissinger's International Seminar. You have been so important to it. And the people who went through Kissinger's International Seminar were people like Klaus Schwab.
Oh, wow.
So Klaus Schwab goes through a Young Global Leader.
Didn't Klaus Schwab say Henry Kissinger was his mentor or something like that?
He was definitely his mentor. Kissinger, when Klaus Schwab went to Kissinger's International Seminar in 1965, graduated in 1967, was given 2 people who were very close to Kissinger, John Kenneth Galbraith, another one of the most important men in history that no one really talks about.
What's his name?
John Kenneth Galbraith, J.K. Galbraith, known as Ken Galbraith. Massively important. He was given John Kenneth Galbraith by Kissinger, John Kenneth Galbraith, and Herman Kahn, the real Dr. Strangelove, the guy who wrote On Thermonuclear War and was central to the nuclear weapons technology, the creation of the paradigm that known as mutually assured destruction. An interesting bunch of people.
So hold on, this guy, Ken Galbraith. Was he a bad one?
He's a definite Fabian. You can smell it in the air.
But he wrote a book on capitalism, didn't he? American capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was a left-wing scholar. He was head of the Warburg School in Harvard for a while. In late 30s, he met his wife while in Germany. She lived with Hitler's bit on the side. So that's already very strange. He was meant to be studying under John Maynard Keynes, but John Maynard Keynes had a heart attack, and instead he went to Germany in 1938 and studied land policies under Hitler in Germany. The war broke out. He went back, became a main key advisor to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When the war ended, he was the one who was sent over to interview Albert Speer, who was the head of war armaments for the Germans, to debrief him to that sense and try and find out where they had got in their nuclear program. He was also the first one to be sent over to Hiroshima and Nagasaki to check out the damage that had been done when they dropped the nukes. He was mentor. He taught JFK. He was a mentor to JFK. He called him the Phileas Fogg of politics, did JFK, and JFK made him. He asked him to be the ambassador to Moscow during the peak of the Cold War, like 1960, 1961, and he went to be ambassador to India. Instead, he refused the one. He has been central to the creation of modern globalism.
So let's talk about the third way. And you're saying nothing gets done in the center and the political solutions in the left and right. Help me with this, because in my head, right, I was thinking this whole left-right paradigm is just bullshit. It's just complete nonsense. Having looked into stuff, the people that are behind socialism, Marxism, communism, they're like the American banker type people. They're the banking cartel. The people who are behind this capitalism business and right wing, they're also the banking cabal type of people. And they're all the same. And in my head, I've come to the conclusion, like, if you look, like, who helped all the Bolsheviks, it was New York bankers. It was those families. And it's like, what the hell? And you just look at the wars. They sent the tanks, the Sherman tanks, to Russia. They supported the Bolsheviks against the White Army, the Royalists and everything. They were on the sides of the fracking, what you would think the opposite to them.
Yep.
And they also supported Hitler's rise, fascism. But realistically, the war, it sounds like Germany did the big mistake of printing its own money that wasn't debt-based. And it was creating a wonderful economy. And that was a threat to the banking cartel. And then the capitalists and the communists kind of like went, right, let's deal with this threat. And to me, left wing, right wing, if you take them to their natural conclusions, they end up in totalitarianism. And the same thing, what you end up with is this communitarianism, techno-fascist communism 2.0. I mean, whatever it is, you've got a very small ruling elite of very rich, powerful oligarchs, and everyone else has nothing and is poor, and you got a central bank, and basically it's just about like which route do you take and how do you manipulate the masses? And the right wing, it's through populism and getting people stirred up and actually marching and demanding the tyranny themselves. And the severe left wing is basically instilling it and imposing it on the masses and capturing some of them ideologically. But eventually they're all the same.
Mm-hmm. All sides.
Am I wrong?
No, all sides are playing the Hegelian dialectical. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing very well. They create the thesis, they create the antithesis, and then they synthesize and go up to the next level. They repeat the process over and over again. The left wing is as fake as the right wing nowadays. They know what tools are available to them politically, and they know that they'll pick and choose whichever ones to get to their main aim. And their main aim is to own as much as possible. And this is part of the problem with globalism, is that as these guys use the left and then the right and then the left and then the right to achieve their aim and get to some sort of global communitarianism, the people underneath get angrier and angrier. This has been talked about a lot again by Lenin, Trotsky, and others. They say, the thing about revolution, about permanent revolution especially, is that you've got this. You've got spirit inside you that you can infuse with anger to change society. Well, every time these guys own everything, that revolutionary spirit rises really quickly. The working class, the proletariat, if you want to talk in communist terms or whatnot, decide this is unacceptable. We're going to overthrow you. Whether they're left, right, whether they're capitalist, communist, it doesn't make a difference. If the people haven't got enough, then they get angry and they revolt. And they know this. So they're managing that revolt by constantly flipping the sides, keeping people in a constant state of confusion where they don't know what's up, what's down, what's real, what's not. And this is where we're entering into now. We're entering 100%. Into the era of fifth generation warfare, where you will not know who you are, let alone who anybody else is.
Right, before we get into fifth generation warfare, I wrote a Substack recently, and in it I put a picture of a sailing boat, right? Stylistically, not like a beautiful picture of a sailing boat, but basically what I was saying was, say you're down here and the sailing boat wants to go up here and it's tacking against the wind. The boat actually faces that way first, then it tacks and then goes that way, and it tacks, then it goes that way. So every single time, it looks like it's going the opposite direction. Like it's one port, then starboard. But actually, if you follow the boat long enough, you'll see it's actually going in one direction. It's going that way. Okay? And to me, that's what left wing, right wing is. You get this impression they're going lurching to that way, the left, and then they're lurching to the right, then they're lurching. But the essence, the core of what they're doing is going to and so a recent example is in the States, you got Biden, you got Kamala. It's a hard lurch to the left, right? And they're talking about mandates and woke and trans and DEI, and it's all, very, very wokey, supporting Israel, Ukraine, pumping the money there. And Trump comes along, it sounds like it's completely different. He's signing orders, he's going to stop DEI, and he's going to stop wokery, and he's going to stop the Ukraine war. Like, it's going now the opposite direction, right? But he's got the technocrats, the billionaires, the oligarchs. Day 2, they're talking about mRNA shots to treat cancer, AI technology to push through individualized medicine, when actually individualized medicine isn't data harvesting, data mining, constant, monitoring devices and gene products. Individualized medicine is me sitting down with you, mate, for 1 hour and listening to your story, 2 hours, figuring out what your life is and what all the buttons that are pressing your life and what's wrong and what's not right, and tailoring a package of care that suits your individual needs, not based on big pharma, not based on protocols and guidelines, and certainly not based on genetic therapy. That's individualized care. But they don't tell you that. They tell you it's AI and gene therapy and all that. And I think the key things like global digital currency and digital ID and globalism, that agenda is still going to be there. So superficially, you're tacking to the left, you're tacking to the right, you're tacking to the left, but really Trump is going to be doing the exact same as Biden would have done, but you've got the superficial stuff that they'll sacrifice to the masses to appease them. So, on Twitter, X, people are constantly saying, why are you having a go at Trump? Don't you know he's playing 5D chess? I think the latest he's playing 9D chess. He's I need to learn this 5D, 9D chess business. But am I right? Is that the essence of it?
Yes. I mean, when we go back to the 80s and early 90s, the reason why third way politics was so easy to sell to people was people were really fed up with the left-right dynamic because it didn't make any difference. It's just two sides arguing and we're all going in the same direction. And they were realizing this. They needed to create something else. Really, what we got now is a load of centrist politicians who pretend they're being hard left or pretend they're being hard right, but they're actually hard centrists. And they're all going towards, yeah, you're right, this exactly the same conclusion. And they don't have control over it. We don't have a control over it. We're controlled a lot of the time by technology, When we talk about AI or mRNA technology, these are the things that are not cooked yet. These are the technologies that are not cooked yet. They're not ready to be rolled out. But they've got to roll them out. They've got to convince you that they're going to be the solutions, because to get to a state where they want them to be, they've got to have you as a test subject. They've got to have you try it out. They've got to have you implement all of the AI solutions. They've got to have you inject mRNA into you so they can watch what happens. Because all they're doing at the moment is thinking that's probably going to be the solution. Just like third way politics is probably going to be the political solution to get them to globalism.
I think that's what one of the things about COVID was. I agree with you. I think it was a big, massive experiment. I know people say it's about depopulation, but I think like a lot of things in the world that we see today, there are multiple reasons and multiple gains and multiple interests at stake. So COVID was about making a lot of money out of the shots. It was about monitoring how effective they are at manipulating society and locking it down, and bringing in the idea of digital passports and ID. It was about injecting the mRNA tech and seeing how effective it was and what works and what doesn't. We were one big lab rat experiment. It was about depopulation and creating infertility and, problems, people not being able to reproduce. It's about making people very sick and then offering them the cure. Hey, by the way, how about we give you a genetic gene therapy that's never been proven to work? We think actually it doesn't work. It doesn't incorporate into your DNA, but it actually does. We're not going to give you informed consent, but you know what? We're going to coerce you and incentivize you into having this shot. Otherwise, you're going to be just stuck at home and you can't go to the pub and you won't be able to go on holiday. And sorry, you're dying suddenly and having turbo cancers and autoimmune conditions and neurological problems. But guess what? You know what? That gene therapy thing, we're going to roll it out to fix these problems as well. I mean, like, to fix the poison, we're going to give you more poison. You couldn't make this up.
And people are hypnotized by the extremes. Oh, they love the extremes.
Why?
Because they want it to be like in a movie. They want it to be that, they're rolling this out, so everybody's going to be dead and they're going to depopulate the earth straight away. That's such a simplistic view. What they're going to do is roll out a technology that allows them to one day do that. They don't have to do it straight away. The first thing they do isn't the most evil plan. What they do is they learn how to harness and utilize the tools until they're ready to do that. And they will want to do that. There's no doubt they want to depopulate, but they'll be depopulating once they have everybody under control, everybody under the thumb, everybody willing to pump something into their body, everybody willing to listen to the propaganda that says, don't have kids. Don't have kids. It's already been going for 30, 40, 50 years that they've been pushing, especially within the feminist movement. It was completely taken over by intelligence agents, really, agencies.
We're not saying that, it's not important to have equal rights and women should have, be liberated in some sense, but it's totally hijacked, wasn't it?
Simplistic arguments are what they use to trick us into supporting them.
Bingo. Well, guess what? I had a podcast with David Thunder, and we were talking just about this. We were talking about the population issue, the fact that you should get him on your show if you haven't. He's a lecturer. He's a really smart guy, and he's talking about every country pretty much in the world. The replacement figure isn't there. So the number of children that you need, like 2.3, 2.4, to sustain a population, it's not there. It's less. It's like 1 point something. So every population is falling, and it's causing a demographic crisis. You've got all these old people who won't be working, not contributing to society, but there won't be any young people to pay the taxes, to make their shops run and the businesses run. So you've got this massive mismatch. Like, what's going to happen? And, right now they're bringing all the immigrants in to fill up the depopulation, but they also benefit. It's always multifactorial, because what you do is you get the cheap labor force, you get this bunch of immigrants who are going to be grateful to the government and the state for all the money and the free phones. So they're not going to rebel against the state. They have no loyalty to the country. So you've got a country now like London where 60% of the people are not from London, not an indigenous population. They don't think of themselves as England, or Londoners. They think of themselves as global citizens. So when, you create global, region states, a one world government, these people will be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're a global citizen. I mean, I don't really care much about England, whatever. Yeah. So you break away the national borders and sovereignty. You mix up the state. It's multiple factors that are involved. It's BS, man.
Yeah, and there's even something even more extreme.
Oh, what? Oh, for God's sake.
Well, the people who create this world, who create this sort of unlimited economic migration, are the same people who pretend to be on the opposing side to it now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
funding the right-wing commentators, stirring up the clash of civilization,
designing and implementing it. So I did 2 articles or 3 articles ago. I was writing about Eric Weinstein. It was an article called "Eric Weinstein's Great Replacement," and it was Eric Weinstein's. He's an
Brett Weinstein's brother.
Yeah, and he goes on on the intellectual dark web scenes and things like Joe Rogan podcast.
Joe Rogan talks about him recently. He was talking about how smart he is. He's one of the smartest persons in the world.
He's one of the stupidest people I've ever come across. If you actually look at what he's doing, half of it is just complete lies. So in 2000 to 2002, he's working for the UN, which he had to change his entire website so that to delete this, to get this off his record. But he was writing a paper called Economic Migration for the Benefit of All for the UN, where he's mapping out how to implement and make in reality the economic migration that we see today. And you won't see that written up there. He won't.
I've got it.
Economic migration?
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen right now, my friend.
Yeah.
So here we go. It's in the Journal, International Labour Organization. That sounds very Fabian to me.
Migrant. It was the migrant division. So migrant, all capitals.
Migration for the Benefit of All Towards a New Paradigm for Economic Immigration. Eric Weinstein, 2002. Can I read it out? The abstract? Migrant worker programs offer the promise of increased productivity, lower consumer prices, cultural interchange, and higher living standards for workers coming from poorer countries. Unfortunately, these programs have regularly been bedeviled by various abuses and unintended consequences. Such failures have tended to mitigate populist support among native workers and citizens, so i.e., local people don't like foreigners coming and taking their jobs.
It lowers their wages.
Yeah, exactly. Thus, in turn, has kept MWP migrant worker programs below the levels wanted by employers, i.e., cabal, for maximal productivity. In this article, an argument is made for a new market-based migrant worker program that seeks to align the support and interests of native workers, employers, consumers, governments, and the interests of migrants. Can I just say something? I love how they always write things in a way that just sounds so nice. Mm-hmm. It just sounds so nice. Like, isn't that good? Like, how's that bad? Everybody's a winner at the end. Did you not hear that everybody's a winner?
Yeah. And do you know what his solution is? Is in that paper, in that paper itself, his solution for the native population becoming poorer is, firstly, don't worry, because eventually they'll be on the same wages as economic migrants, and everybody will be on the same wage, so it won't matter anyway. And there will be currently unknown technologies and things that we can implement to offset it. So it's okay. We haven't thought up how we're going to cause, native workers not to be upset by the fact that we're taking money off them, taking jobs off them, and giving them to these guys who just came over just now. We don't have a solution for it now, but we will in the future. So don't worry. Don't worry. We'll find a solution as we go along. That's what its solution is for it. We'll find a solution eventually. Yeah, well, these guys are fed to us. They're fed to us. The intellectual dark web, the people like Joe Rogan, the people like Jordan B. Peterson, the people like Brett and Eric Weinstein, the people like Douglas Murray, they're fed to us. They're fed to us to give us that sort of like narrative that we're going to go forward and say, oh, yeah, we want to do this. We're against it. We're with these guys and they're against the system. And they're not. They are the system. But the system for the world that they're envisioning and we don't see come upon us yet because we've not got there.
So to me, I agree. A lot of them are, I mean, Mary AF talks about if you know their name, they're in the game.
I like Mary. She's all right.
Yeah. So, I think she does good work. So basically, it's kind of concerning for me right now because I just hit the 200K mark on X. So I'm like, oh, my name's getting out there. But
There's going to be a knock at the door. There's going to be a knock at the door, and they'll be there with a little plaque. They'll be, you're in the club now, and that's it. Your soul will be just sucked out your body.
No, the camera wasn't on you when that. You need to show what you just did there. That was hilarious. So do that again.
Well, they'll be there with a plaque, and the soul they'll suck it out your body. Straight out your body. You don't have a chance. You don't have a chance.
Well, I'm going to resist, okay?
I believe you.
Do you want to hear something really funny? I haven't told anyone this yet. So basically, I did this, just sidetrack for a second. I did this, the viral thing that started this whole shit show. So after I went on TV and spoke out against the mandates, I kind of went quiet, went back to my life. I don't want the limelight, unlike a lot of people. I just wanted a quiet life. I was very happy. You've seen my life. I've got a good life, right? I live in a beautiful little cottage, two bedroom, 2.5 bedroom cottage. I've got a good life. It's a nice part of the world. I had a lovely practice. I didn't want anything, right? And then, but I did this video on X saying, look, there's something seriously wrong with these shots. And it went viral, got 1 million views. And then I thought, oh, wow, people like what I'm saying. And then the hospital said, stop it, don't do it. And like a little kid, I went, you telling me to stop it? I'm gonna go double down on this. So suddenly I'm on Twitter all the time, messaging away. And suddenly, in about a month or two, I had like 10,000 followers. And my brother-in-law he rings me up and goes, oh, and he's one of my best friends, right? He rings me up and goes, oh my God, you've got 10,000 followers on Twitter. I need to get an autograph from you. And I was like, shut up. Like, literally, I was like, shut up. And I was like, all right, let's pick a number that's just so ridiculous that I'll never, ever get to. I was like, look, mate, when I get to 200,000, I'll send you an autograph. Thinking, right, it's never going to happen. And it just hit 200,000. And my brother-in-law, he's not forgotten. He's like, that autograph. And I'm like, wow. So, you know what? I'm quite amazed. I'm not the kind of person who chases followers. But I'm happy that my message is getting out to a lot of people and I've got a voice and a platform because in the space that I'm looking at, I see a lot of people who I feel are captured and controlled, whether directly or indirectly. I'm not going to name names. I'm just saying genuine, authentic, uncaptured people are really hard to find.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable or am I being paranoid?
Yeah, and I'm a naughty one. I do name a name.
No, don't name names.
Don't name names. Whatever you do. No. I mean, recently I had a ding dong a couple of months ago with someone who approached me on behalf of George Galloway's show and asked me to be on there and basically take the side like I was supporting Israel. It's insane. It's insane. I would just do that for the fact I could go on one show in particular. And
so hold on a second. They wanted you to come on with a pre-agreed agenda narrative position.
Yeah, 100%. And
But that happens all the time. I did that with you. I told you what to talk about. Remember, I told you what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. Remember, I said, listen, buddy, this is the script. Read from this. Yeah, this is the only you're allowed.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is I trust people when they say you can talk about whatever you want. That's what I trust. And when people...
Were you testing me? Right, listen, everybody in the audience, this guy, I'm sitting in the car, I've just picked him up from the train station, and I said, right, dude, what do you want to talk about? He goes, whatever you want. I went, you're coming to my show, and I don't know what's in your brain. I want you to come and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. Was that you testing me?
No. That was me literally saying, I will talk about absolutely everything without fear or favor. I'm someone who, this is why large parts of the independent media won't talk to me at all anymore, because they know I'm going to say something about their mate, their buddy, their guy who's the only one who gives them a platform. And it's like, okay, fine. If they give you a platform, that's fine. You can still, if someone's got a platform, you can still test whether you can trust them or not. You can still push them. You can still see whether or not they're actually real. They've got, if they've got real morals, if they've got real ethics, and it's testable. So I don't see what the problem is. But the problem is that, and this is, I'll name another name on a very positive front, someone who's completely opposite.
Yeah.
And who got in trouble for having me on, I think. Joe Allen, he's brilliant. He's part of the War Room.
Joe Allen? Who's that?
Yeah, he's part of the War Room, which is Steve Bannon's podcast. And Bannon's guys, the majority of them won't like it. I know they shouted at him after having me on to talk about Elon Musk's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But I really, really appreciated the fact that someone whose platform is going to be politically against what I'm saying for various reasons is happy to say no. I'm willing to discuss it. I'm willing to test the theories, and I'm brave enough to say that if I believe in the principles that I'm putting out there, then they're testable. They're testable. You can talk about these things. So there's the independent media sphere is as complex as the mainstream media sphere.
Yeah, isn't it?
It really is. And I don't think it's going to get any easier anytime soon, because this is, like I say again, we're entering into the realm of 5th generation warfare. And I'm thinking, I got up to thinking about probably 50-60% of independent media platforms are just... they're being put there. They've been put there. They've been funded. They've been pushed out because they are there to push a certain narrative to a certain audience.
Right. We'll come to some of these things that you just talked about, but just going back a wee bit, you talked about the fact that the people who are behind the migrant crisis, right, invasion, are the same people who then create the the Hegelian dialect of supporting the people like Douglas Murray, who calls out, the clash of the Judean Christian values and blah, 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 and promoting those kind of people. So they're like, they really are stirring up the ant's nest, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they create the problem and then they offer the solution, and then you're either picking one or the other, and you're just like stuck between the two. And anytime anyone wants to come up with an original idea or outside of their idea of thinking, you're squashed and censored. You have to pick one or two of like what they're offering you. But the thing is, sometimes the people that they present, they are actually saying things that are correct. Like a lot of it is correct. I would say the best lie that you swallow is one that's coated in layers and layers of truth. So, there is a migrant crisis. There is a problem. There is problems with young people from, Kurdistan, Afghanistan, Syria, raping young boys in swimming pools in Germany. There are problems with, grooming gangs in this country. That is a fact. The bad people haven't created them, but maybe they've created the environment in which they can flourish.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
They use,
for example, Labour have, the Raja Mia, the activist that I had on my show, the podcast just came out. He's telling me that, Labour turned a blind eye and looked the other way because they're getting votes. they're getting these postal votes from the Asian community, the Bangladeshis and the Muslims. They go to the head honcho in the mosque, tell them all to fill out the way they want. So, do you see what I mean? There's an environment and culture where you're kind of letting this go on, and then you don't get the police and the judiciary to investigate it and do anything about it. So it's all weird because, like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, it's easy to sell as well, because all of these lies, misinformation, mistruths, whatever you want to call them, they're kind of they're coated in a really good logical fallacy. So these guys are. This is where really all of these people, such as I'll mention his name again, Douglas Murray, and I'll use an example. I watched a video of him recently talking about what he calls the Israel-Hamas war. That's already a tainted, like, Israel-Palestine is suddenly Israel-Hamas. That in itself is a logical fallacy. But he's using this. He's there he's given a lot of time to speak by people. He's given his place. Sometimes I wonder if they just capture loads of what he says and try and clip it up to be the most impressive thing. And this one point he's making, he's saying, imagine that what happened on October 7th happened in New York. Imagine. And then what he does is straight away, he creates a false paradigm. He creates a logical fallacy because, well, you'd have to think that in that case then, New Yorkers would have had to been occupied for the past 75 years. They would have had to been systematically abused in a certain way. They would have to be a religious, like, autocracy that is ruling it,
and apartheid.
Yeah, under something that's akin to Zionism. But he's not mentioning all of that.
Colonialism? How about Chinese people taking over the land and colonizing it, and from the indigenous people?
Douglas Murray wants to emote you and wants you to connect something that isn't connected with something that you care about. So he wants New Yorkers to say, oh yes, can you imagine? They all came in and just took our babies for no reason whatsoever. And, that's what Douglas Murray does. And that's what Jordan Peterson does. And that's what Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein does. And that's what all of these guys do. Jordan Peterson is very good at it. He'll use 2 or 3 logical fallacies. He's like the David Blaine of logical fallacy use. He'll use a mixture of tools to confuse you so you don't know which direction you're even looking in anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Logical fallacies. Let's look up the definition of logical fallacies.
There's so many different logical fallacies. An example for the intellectual dark web would be Ben Shapiro, who his use of logical fallacy is amazing, but is basically the same logical fallacy over and over again. He uses whataboutism. He says, oh, yes, they complain that we do this, but what about them? That doesn't stop the original complaint being untrue. It just means that he can point at someone doing the same thing and claim, oh, because they're doing it, it's somehow fine that we're doing it. That's a logical fallacy.
Right, can we go through the list of fallacies? Is that all right?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Just for, funsies' sake. I'm going to come back to those people that you mentioned because there's also something else that I've noticed about them. So a fallacy is the use of invalid or otherwise faulty reasoning in the construction of an argument. All forms of human communication can contain fallacies. Because of their variety, fallacies are challenging to classify. They can be classified by their structure, formal fallacies, or content, informal fallacies. The use of fallacies is common when the speaker's goal of achieving common agreement is more important to them than utilizing sound reasoning, and I would add, getting to the truth. They want to cover up the truth. They want to conceal the truth. When fallacies are used, the premise should be recognized as not well-grounded, the conclusion is unproven, but not necessarily false, and the argument is unsound. So appeal to probability, taking something for granted because it probably would have been the case, argument from fallacy, base rate. Oh my God, there's a lot.
It changed.
There's tons.
Learning about logical fallacies changed my entire understanding of arguments, my entire understanding of the world around me, my entire understanding of who's really a hero and who's really a villain. Because I can promise you, there are loads of villains everywhere, and all of the villains are using logical fallacies to trick you. Every single one of them. Is no doubt at all
logical fallacies.
They're all using separate. And some of them have been taught that is logic. that's what logic looks like or sounds like. That is how to argue with someone. So they get taught it from a very early. If you go out, if the people at home who are watching this, they go and they start learning about logical fallacies, they will soon not be able to be tricked in nearly every situation. They will hear someone talk and they will say, well, that's BS. Then they'll listen to the other side and go, oh, that's BS too. And you'll listen to the right wing and go, oh my God, they're just basing that all on logical fallacies. And then you listen to the left wing and go, oh, all their arguments are also based on logical fallacies. And you realize no one's using logic. What's the point of using logic when you can just lie? And when you can just use something that's so carefully constructed that it manipulates you, that it causes you to make a decision based on illogical reasoning.
Yeah, dude, wow. I need to make a short of that. Well, can I just say something? I've just thought about it. I need to take this as a compliment that you're here. Because clearly you don't think I'm then controlled or whatever.
No, I think you're a lovely guy. I love it. I'm totally blessed to be around people who are interested and intrigued. And when I see someone who is really fundamentally is motivated to know more and motivated to understand what truth is, the basis of it, and isn't taking one side or the other, I love it. I just, that's human. That's human.
I'm still the kid. I'm just a kid that wants to know why. You know the why? The little kid, why? I mean, I had Shankar Chetty on my podcast. He was freaking amazing. And he was just talking about remaining a child. The purpose of life is not to be adulterated, to remain the child, the inquisitive child, the brave child, you know, and just that joyful soul. It's beautiful.
He's such a good wordsmith as well.
He is. So look, coming back to those people that you just mentioned, one of the things I realized is they get the airtime. They don't get cut off like from guests, from their hosts like me, always interrupting you. Sorry, they get a lot of airtime, but they talk like, for example, our friend Douglas Murray. He talks in this very posh English accent that gives them this air of credibility, and then they talk in a way that's very slow and measured and almost hypnotic. And we can take other characters that you listed off, and they talk in a way that's just so profound. And then you get a joker like you from Wales going rah, 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 and you get someone like me from Glasgow going rah, 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 rah. And it's like, well, these guys, they don't know what jack shit. Look at them. Look at these guys. They don't know anything. These other guys, though, they're talking in a way that's so distinguished, and I don't really know what they're saying, but the way they're saying it just makes me think, yes, I'm very comfortable that they're telling the truth. Am I right in this?
Yes. Now, there comes... I said that like Douglas Murray. Yes.
Maybe we should have part one where we were just talking like normal people, and now we should have part two where we mimic, why don't you just explain to me, Johnny, what you think about what I've just said? I
totally agree with you. I have to say that thinking about it now, yes, they do all do that. And that's because they have to. And I got to break out of it. Got to go back into silly Welsh, man. They all have to think carefully about what they're saying, because they are skipping around logic as much as possible. And they've got to be really careful. Now, when you're talking there, it reminded me of when I first started looking into the intellectual dark web and Eric Weinstein and people. Eric Weinstein was the first person out of it that made me go, something's not right here. And that was because I'd heard him on different podcasts, including I've seen him on the Joe Rogan podcast doing this, where he's got a question he doesn't know the answer to. And instead of saying, no, I don't know the answer to that, he'll stop and be like, okay, imagine this. And then he'll start talking about something completely different. He'll start mapping out an idea or a metaphor for something that is unrelated to bring it away from the thing that he doesn't know anything about. And the person who's listening, like Joe Rogan, will sit there wide-eyed going, oh, they don't understand a word he's saying or why it relates to the point that he's saying it. They are just in awe of that intellectualism. Intellectualization. I mean, and I'm not surprised. Yeah. I mean, teachers we are taught in school to listen to the person in the room who sounds like he knows the most, not the person who knows the most.
Absolutely. So I saw through all this BS as a surgeon, as a doctor. I saw the doctors who would embellish and make something out of nothing. And I talked about this recently. I actually need to read it directly from my post. I wrote it on Substack because I went to see someone about my neck. I injured it during jiu-jitsu. So I saw this guy called Simon King. He's brilliant. He used to be a chiropractor. He can't use that title anymore. So anyway, he went there, dude, and within 2 minutes, he diagnosed my neck problem without any MRI scan or anything. I knew what it was because I'm a surgeon. I knew which nerve root, C7, blah, 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 because of the distribution of my arm where the pain was. But like literally testing my muscles, like within 30 seconds, he was like, I think you got C7 disc problem. I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, let me have a look, examine it. 2-3 minutes later, I need to do this adjustment, that adjustment, 90% better. And then went back again just 10 days later, another adjustment, now I'm 99% better. I mean, it feels pretty much back to normal. But, you know, what I wanted to do was I wanted to share the fact that when people go and see someone like him, the vast majority of people are like, well, that was easy. Why am I paying him £200? I mean, he just picked that up in 2 seconds. He clicked it. I was out about 20 minutes. It doesn't matter the fact my pain is gone. I'm not in agony. I mean, anybody could have done that. Paying £200 for that. Then you've got the other people who are like, oh, yes, right. Let me have a look at your arm and like, oh, this is very complicated. Yeah. Well, it could be this problem. It could be that. I'm not really sure. I need to look into it. I think we need to get an MRI scan. Yeah, we need an MRI scan. I need to interpret it. Then you go off. You paid your £150, £200 appointment. You then pay £500 for the scan. Then you bring you back. They go, oh, well, you got a very unusual MRI scan. Yes. Just looking at, well, it could be that problem, but it's identified possibly another issue. I think we might need a CT scan. Then you go off, get your CT, and like, oh my God, this is a difficult problem. Even this doctor is like struggling to figure it. Then they come back and they go, oh, well, I think the problem is that, you know, you might need an injection and it's going to be very difficult. It's not guaranteed to work. And if that doesn't work, we need surgery. It's going to be £1,000 for the injection. And, you know, hopefully it'll work. Might not. You know, I've done lots of these. But, no, this is a difficult case. Then you have the injection, it doesn't work. Then you come back and they go, oh, but I'm sorry. You know, it was a difficult case. You know, it was only picked up in the CT scan at the end of the day. And, you know, it's very unusual. You know, the problem's with you, not me. Yeah, I think we need to do a surgery now. And not the whole time, this guy's like, oh my God, I'm with this great surgeon. He's fixing me. Oh my God, I spent all this money. You know, whereas the Simon King, I'd be like, well, what did he know? It was just 5 seconds. So I'll give an example, right? So in my experience as training as a surgeon, it reminded me of some other surgeons. So for example, I'll give one example. There's a hand surgeon, right? I once worked alongside. And this individual had an incredible knack for making a mountain from a molehill. He would turn a simple carpal tunnel release, which is an operation in the hand, and most skilled surgeons can complete in 10 minutes. I'm not bigging myself up, but I'm telling you, as a trainee, I would do it in 5 minutes. I do 8 of these in a morning session. Boom, 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 on my own. Right? It's not hard. And he would not do that. He would draw it out. It would be an hour-long ordeal. And he'd theatrically outline every step of the procedure as if it was a groundbreaking operation. And he'd always have a junior doctor trainee with him. And he'd be like, yeah, do you know your anatomical landmarks? And you know, it's very important. There's a nerve that runs here. And you know, you just need to make sure that you move it here and you place the incision like this. And you need to look out for this ligament and, you know, make sure you cauterize the blood vessels. And do you know what? You need to talk it and embellish it and flower this 5-minute operation, 10-minute operation. And the problem is, the junior doctors that were assisting him, because they didn't have any knowledge, were so impressed. And he developed a reputation amongst the junior doctors for being this great surgeon and teacher. His process was slow, inefficient, and entirely unnecessary. What's worse is that he'd often go out of his way to overcomplicate surgeries that didn't require it, leaving the impression that he was more competent than he was. But the truth was obvious to those who knew better. His inefficiency, coated in flowery theatrics, masked a lack of true skill. The unfortunate reality is that many lay people and junior doctors who know no better were easily deceived by individuals like this hand surgeon. Without the expertise to discern skill from showmanship, they're often misled into admiring such professionals, mistaking their theatrics and self-promotion for genuine excellence. this isn't limited to surgeons. It's pervasive issue across countless trades and professions. And I would argue, my friend, even these kind of people you're talking about on the stage today, you know, far too often people inflate problems and overstate their expertise, all to command respect, justify delays, and charge more for their services. In stark contrast, those who are truly skilled and ethical approach their work with quiet efficiency. They solve complex problems swiftly and competently, yet their very proficiency often leads them to being undervalued or overlooked. Amen.
It makes me think of Qigong. It makes me think of martial arts. It makes me think of flowery kicks and embroidery punches. That, like is said about, you can learn from a master how to do martial arts, but you might just be learning how to do flowery kicks and embroidery punches. In an actual fight, you're not going to do anything. You're going to be over it's going to be over in no time whatsoever. And you are right. These guys are very good at intellectualizing the shit out of something. But whether it's true or not, well, the proof will be in the pudding at the end of it.
You ever heard of Dave Smith, the comedian?
Yes.
Do you know what he's really good at? He's really good at breaking down all these arguments and going, well, this doesn't make sense. And the way he does it, I love it, because he's a comedian, and he, I love his podcast, and he just, he has these really long monologues, and he just breaks down, because look, play this, look, what does this guy say? What a load of rubbish. And I'll explain why. And when he does it, it's so obvious and so simple. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. But he just worded it in a way that debunks everything they say.
The dude is breaking down logical fallacies as he goes, and he's exposing them and showing you them so that you will know them again in the future. And the people who do that are some of the most important people to listen to, because they'll give you the tools. You shouldn't be told what to think or what not to think, what's right or what's wrong. You should be told how to distinguish what's right and what's wrong. You should be given the tools so that you can see it yourself. And then once you see it, you can never look at it again. With these people who we're talking about here, once I say to you that, Eric Weinstein or Douglas Murray will not only intellectualize, but they'll use logical fallacies, and people, their fans go, oh, this amount of hate I get if I criticize Douglas Murray online from his fans. They're like, oh my God, no, he's so important what he's doing. And if they think about it in the context of, is he actually telling you the truth? And is what he's telling you, is it based upon something that is politically expedient for him and his friends? Then you go, oh, it's hard to unsee it now. And every time you watch him, you'll be like, oh, I can't do it anymore. I can't see it. I'm just going to have to go and find a new savior who's going to tell me how to live my life.
So I had something like this awakening. So during COVID, stuck here in the garden, I discovered podcasts. Was never a fan of podcasts. And, God bless my brother, he's always trying to get me into podcasts. I was like, Tim Ferriss, you should check out Tim Ferriss, it's great, and blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't have time, mate. And then COVID came along, and then I had time. So I started listening to podcasts. James Dalrymple, shout out to him. He was amazing. He's like rescued my sanity. Joe Rogan, I have to admit, at that time, it was very helpful to me as well. I still dip in and out. There's some good guests that he has. Where was I going with this? There was one, who you just mentioned someone. I normally don't forget my train of thought.
No, I don't normally.
Yes, I've remembered. Sorry, this is very unusual for me. I normally remember everything. So yeah, there was another podcast I discovered. It's called Trigonometry. Right? I started listening to them. I was like, yeah, this whole woke thing is nonsense. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, these guys are great. Let me listen to them. And then about 3-4 episodes in, I was like, no. Hold on one second. What is this bullshit? Like, just because I agree with a lot of what they're saying, there's a lot of what they are saying as well that I'm totally not cool with. And it was like, I don't like this. And now, if I ever dip in just to see what's going on at this still, I can't literally listen for more than 5-10 minutes. It drives me nuts. It's like, are you kidding? This is just BS. So yeah, I think once you kind of see it, you can't unsee it.
That's what we need. It's what we need all across the board. We need to be able to give people the ability to see the thing that they will never be able to get away from, and the guys at Trigonometry, well, those guys are just like the budget intellectual dark web. They've come to power because they watched the people like the Weinsteins and Shapiro and Peterson and others who usually populate things like the Joe Rogan podcast. They've seen how they argue and they've seen the points they're making, and they've just adopted them and taken them on board.
You don't think you'll ever get invited to on the Joe Rogan show?
I don't know. If I did, I would go on and I would say a lot of things that him and his friends wouldn't want me to say. So whether
Dave Smith goes on. Dave Smith's been a regular, and he's talks against the Zionists, in Israel, and he talks about the injustice and the unhealthy interests of the Zionists in America. And he's a Jew, and he's an American. He's brilliant. I love him. I think
I find it really, really intriguing that the comedians have such an important role. The Bohemians. When I talk about it, I've talked about this on a couple of different podcasts with a couple of different people about Bohemian Grove and how it's set up into 3 different sections.
I don't know about any of that.
Well, basically, you have the intellectual man, the academic, you have the government man, and you have the Bohemian, the actor. And these are set up in 3 different camps in Bohemian Grove. So Bohemian Grove have their 3 different areas.
Have you been?
But maybe if I did, it would be like Alex Jones going through oh my God, they're snorting babies. Oh my God, they're definitely snorting babies. But what the basis of this thesis that I'm presenting here is the academic man tells the government man how to run society, and the government man goes to the Bohemians, the actors, the comedians, the musicians, and he gets them to sell it to the people. That's the way society works. Academics create the political paradigms, create social paradigms. They feed it to the government men who go to the Bohemians who sell it. So it's not a surprise that there's comedians and podcasters are the center of where we get most of our information from, because they're the guys who are selling us whatever narrative. Now, with Dave Smith, I don't know whether he's on board, whether he's not on board. I don't know whether he's secretly believes something else or etc. I don't know if he's bought. But I do know that if he gets put on those platforms, likelihood is it's because they accept whatever he says as being acceptable to put out on the air. Just like the mainstream media wouldn't have me on, so does lots of the independent media don't have me on for the same reason. Because I would not agree with them in a way that would be uncomfortable.
So I know what you mean by that. So I'll give an example. So I've been on GB News, I think 3 times. And the way it works is they've got like a junior producer reaches out to you and says, "Oh, can you come on?" And I think they make mistakes sometimes. So like the last time it was on Nigel Farage's show, they wanted me to come on, and it was about privatization, the NHS crisis, NHS problems, the survey, and how they wanted to push private healthcare. And so some junior producer goes, "Hey, hello," and I answered the number. I was like, I've seen your private orthopedic surgeon," and I didn't mention the fact I've given up. And then they're like, "Yeah, so I've just got it on the books that you're a private orthopedic surgeon. You've been on in the past talking about the problems with the NHS. We'd love you to come on the Nigel Farage show to talk about the problems of the NHS." So guess what? I went on the Nigel Farage show, and I was told the other guest would get 10 minutes, and I would then get 10 minutes and then break. Right? So the other guy had like 10 minutes, comes to me, and it was obvious from the way the question was slated that he wanted me to bash the NHS. And I went, well, actually, the problem isn't that simple. It's not Labour that's just done this. Every government has done this. Labour, Conservative. It's a uniparty system. I said uniparty. And I said, sorry, Reform's there as well. His party. He never challenged me back on that one. And then, and I said, look, what about COVID, the mandates, the vaccines? I kind of threw in all these things. I went, the problem's much bigger. It's orchestrated, and and we don't want an American-style healthcare system. It's not. It's more complicated than just the NHS is bad. It's being engineered to fail, and it's a wealth distribution. The wealth is extracted from us, the taxpayer, to big pharma and the corporations. That's all that's happening, and it's a gravy train for these people. And I could see he did not like where this was going. And guess what? He went back to the original guest, started speaking to him, and I was like, "But this is my time. You just interrupted me. He said, "Oh, what do you think of that?" And now the guy gave a stupid. He was just there to say whatever. He was a guy who was happy to go along to get the airtime. I don't give a frack about getting airtime. I wanted to get my views across. What I'm trying to say is I got there by accident because some junior producer cracked up. After the show, I got no look from Nigel Farage. No hello. No thank you for coming. It was like, right, okay, can you follow me? Some person came and said, that's it, you're done. I won't be invited back. And if I do get invited back, it'll be by accident.
I'd be interested. First of all, if I went on a Nigel Farage show, I wouldn't be able to stop from asking him about Drexel Burnham Lambert, which he worked within, which was one of the biggest frauds in US history. I mean, everybody who worked there knew they were ripping millions off. Drexel Burnham Lambert.
I need to look it up.
That's a really important and interesting one.
Drexel?
Burnham
Lambert, private banking.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest frauds in history. In actual fact, one of the people to sort it out was...
Oh my goodness, it was once the 5th largest investment bank in the US? That's big.
Yeah, and collapsed massively because they were just stealing money off people. It was just a one massive Ponzi scheme. It was very, very clever. The people who were involved made a lot of money for the rest of their careers. How would you become the created thesis or antithesis of the establishment Hegelian dialectical unless you were somehow already extremely rich? So Farage has probably got that behind it. I seen on, but I was going to say about GB News. I had a lady, I think her name's Caroline Coram, who came on and she talked about environmentalism, talked about cloud seeding, things like this that you're not allowed to speak about. And they brought her on for this, and I think it was Neil Oliver who was on there. And they did exactly the same thing. She came on, said a load of things that are inconvenient for the narrative, and then he turned straight to this guy who's an establishment stooge who just said, "Oh no, all of that's wrong, blah de blah de blah de blah de blah," and they didn't really give her a chance to go out in against him. What they did was have, "Oh, this is the alternative view. Now let's poo-poo it."
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah, look, by the way, just looked up. So Nigel Farage left Drexel Burnham Lambert in 1986. Look, we don't know what he was involved in, and he might have just been doing... Look, I'll give an example. I think we have to be careful how we associate, and let me explain why. I worked at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. I was appointed a consultant there. Guess what? Stoke Mandeville Hospital is also the hospital where Jimmy Savile was, and the cafe was named after him. So what I'm trying to say is, Ahmad Malik, he worked in the Jimmy Savile Hospital. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand
I'm
that.
Just saying,
every single person who worked at Drexel Burnham Lambert was a dirty, rotten bastard. Listen, if he wants to sue me over that one, he can. But everybody who worked at Drexel Burnham Lambert was a dirty, rotten bastard. I'm not saying that about every place. Drexel Burnham Lambert was one of the biggest frauds in history.
Okay, I know at the end, but I think that I wouldn't say something like that. And the reason why is these big organizations, I just feel like there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing. They're pigeonholed into little silos, and they're like the low person. I've worked in departments as a junior doctor where I then later found out that the professor was totally fudging the figures and the statistics and the research paper. I was involved. I was taking information from the patient and doing scorecards and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't complicit. Mm-hmm. And do you see what I mean?
No, I do.
So that's why, as a blanket, I don't think it's fair to just say everybody. We don't know, dude. Mm. Johnny, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I'm pushing back on this one. I'm just saying.
I agree with you with when it comes down to looking at that through Stoke Mandeville Hospital, because it's a hospital. It's doing loads of good work all over the place. But when it comes to Drexel Burnham Lambert, that was the biggest fraud. It was set up to be that. It was everybody on board made a lot of money, and it was at the taxpayers' expenses. At the end of it, when they were actually going through the how much had been taken, it was 70% of it was government.
Okay, but I'm just saying, pushing back again, without hard evidence to say that everyone there, there might be 20,000 people working there too. You cannot say everyone there. I just don't think so. It's just, so for example, the podcast about the Pakistani grooming gangs. Dude, there's a lot of Pakistanis who have been in this country who were doing bad stuff.
Again, it'd be a logical fallacy if I said that about Pakistanis.
No, but saying then oh, they're all Pakistanis. No, technically, I'm Pakistani. I was born in this country. My parents are from Pakistan. So, it's in you. I can't. That's why I never say it's the Jews, it's the blacks, it's the whites, it's the Pakis. It's bad people in these places, you know.
And to push back on that, if any of those Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Jews, anybody worked for Drexel Burnham Lambert, they were dirty, rotten bastards. So I understand. Listen, I know loads of. I meet people from all around the world. I have such I have a rich and deep knowledge of other countries, and I love discussing things about other. And I do not use logical fallacies as much as I can possibly notice them. But with Drexel Burnham Lambert, it was one of the biggest frauds in history, and I am yet to find someone who worked there who wasn't a dirty, rotten bastard. So until someone can prove to me that there was a nice person working for Drexel Burnham Lambert...
Do you want to just say dirty, rotten bastards one more time just to get it out of your system?
Dirty, rotten bastards.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Like, some people just get upset. So this podcast, right, that I did about the Pakistani grooming gangs, I just want to talk about that a little bit in a second. But, you know, I posted on my my X feed, like, you know, I said this, look, of over 300 podcasts I've recorded, this was probably the most difficult, if not the most difficult conversation I've had. In the periphery of my awareness, you know, because I don't read the news, I don't watch the TV, I knew there was a problem in Rotherham with Pakistani grooming gangs, but this conversation has made me realize that what we are facing is a national catastrophe. Justice needs to be served immediately, and thousands of people are locked up in jail and then deported once their sentence has been served. I think that the punishment should be castration, and they should be fed their member.
Wow.
And then they should have a tattoo across their head saying, I'm a
dirty, rotten bastard.
Dirty, rotten Anyway, something like that. And then they should be deported. Right? Honestly, one of my supporters was saying you should have a tattoo of your murderer, rapist, you know, groomer, child groomer, whatever. Because then you know, why should they be in jail for 10 years and our taxpayers' expense, cozy comfort life, come out and then get back to normal? Everyone should know that's what they did. And it might be the case that, you know, you sit down and you say to the murderer, oh, well, who'd you murder? Oh, you know what? It was a fit of rage, blah, blah, blah. My wife was, you know, this, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm over it. I'm very remorseful. And you go, all right, okay, well, if I can keep a close eye on you, right? Equally, if you're, you know, raping kids and young women, then I want to know. So I think it should be tattooed on their forehead.
I am extreme when it comes to... Listen,
I'm just saying. Anyway, can I quickly, before you come on to that, I want to explore what's going on in Wales. I said, I don't know what else to say. I can't end with enjoy this podcast, which is what I normally do. I said, because you won't enjoy this podcast. It's a painful listen, but people need to hear it, and there has to be a national outrage, and politicians have to be held accountable because they've let this fly. Something needs to be done immediately. And we had this guy comment. What do you think of this? Why don't you F yourself for associating the name of the entire community to the criminal gang? It's like calling people on the Epstein list American Christian pedos. Would you? When you start to attack the entire community race, you're nothing but a piece of shit unfollowing you. Do you think they're justified to say that?
I think there's a load of... Now, for someone who's... I've been working on the Epstein case now for about 6 years. And I've tried to explore every single part of that case. And I know that, again, it would be a logical fallacy if I said everybody who got onto his plane was a paedophile, because it just would not be true. I've looked in detail at each one of the people, and some are interior designers who have no idea what's going on. Some are politicians, some are this, some are that. But you can't say, of course you can't say that the whole community is, you know, what is being used there is a logical fallacy as well. You're saying that these people who are from this community are bad, hence you're saying the whole community is bad.
I never said that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a logical fallacy that's being used in that response there.
Yeah.
Is that they're saying, because you've said this, everybody's bad. Listen, a load of people...
I made a point of that in the podcast, saying this isn't like I've got Pakistani family members.
Yeah, but that's
like, what the hell?
You end up going through that cycle of trying to excuse yourself for things you haven't done.
Yeah.
The fact is that what the difference is that once Epstein was convicted, charged, if people were meeting him after he was already known for what he was doing, then they've got an issue.
Yeah,
that's an issue with credibility. That's Elon Musk. That's
really after.
2011. I got a picture of him at the Edge conference in 2011. There's probably about 25 people in the room, and one of them is Elon Musk, just sitting behind Jeffrey Epstein, just sitting behind him.
What's the Edge conference?
Edge organization is edge.com. It's complicated to go into, but basically John Brockman set up this organization that was looking at how to make the technocratic future a reality, and how to bring the most richest and affluent scientists into a community that could then be used to control how the future goes and the information that comes out. He was very into information theory. He was very into John Brockman. And this eventually got funded almost totally by Jeffrey Epstein. I think at one point it was totally funded by Jeffrey Epstein.
Elon Musk looks very different now. I'm just looking at a picture from the Edge dinner. Yeah. 2011, he's there.
Yeah. And it is another picture.
And then Bezos, was Bezos there as well?
Yeah. Jeff Bezos was a big time attender of Edge. But Jeff Bezos is another one who's got a history which is being manufactured, created. He had loads of books produced after he became the richest tech pioneer on the planet in 1999. He had a load of books published on Amazon which said how Jeff Bezos made his money. Jeff Bezos, the life of Jeff Bezos. Oh, we got a station wagon. We bought a station wagon off my parents, and then we filled it full of books, and we created Amazon. He was
No, dude, listen. Can you please take on my advice?
Yeah, go on.
And just say it. So, talking like this in a measured manner. So that people...
Jeff Bezos.
Just say exactly what you just said, but in the Douglas Murray style.
Oh, it's hard to do a Douglas Murray.
Just do it.
I've got to almost feel it. Jeff Bezos would like you to think that he was a tech pioneer who just came out of nowhere. He just got a station wagon. He filled it full of books, and him and his wife went and they created Amazon. But the reality is much different than that. The reality.
Oh, tell me, how is it different? Sorry. Yeah, I'm playing Joe Rogan now. How is it different?
Jeff Bezos, my friend, was the vice president and acting president of D.E. Shaw, which was one of the biggest hedge funds in the world, and owned 5 to 10% of the New York Stock Exchange. It was so big when he became the head of Amazon. It was actually a seeding program. People like the head of download.com, who worked alongside Amazon at Jeff Bezos at D.E. Shaw, went on to create download.com. They were seeded into place.
Dude, I think I'm going to take you much more seriously if you talk like that.
Oh, no,
I think this might be the recipe to your success, dude. Like, seriously, you know what? If you really want to kick it off big time into the super top league, you just need to slow down that voice.
Maybe, but I'm Welsh. I'm a mad Welshman from Cardiff.
Well, you're doomed. You're doomed.
Yeah, I am doomed. Because
that's right. Let's speed it up again now.
I didn't have what these guys had. I didn't have wealth when I was young. I didn't have a good upbringing. My upbringing was crazy. My dad was brought up in the roughest pub in Cardiff. You know, really, really rough pub in Ely called the Dusty Forge.
What your grandparents owned the pub?
Yeah. They run the roughest. But they had to steal the furniture back every night. I really mean that. They were sitting in bread crates by the end of the night. I always wondered when I was growing up why we had so many bread crates around. And I think my nan just got into the point where she was like, I got to have bread crates just in case people steal the chairs. The fish were alcoholic in the Dusty Forge.
Hi, me again. You're listening to the Doc Malik podcast. This show is 100% independent and fully funded by listeners like yourself. So if you wish to support Ahmed in all that he is doing, then please subscribe to his channel on Spotify or on his Substack, or simply buy him a coffee with one of the donation links which can be found at docmalik.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
That was because people kept pouring like whiskey into the fish tank, and eventually whenever they changed the water, all the fish died because they were all alcoholics.
Are you kidding?
No, they used to take people up the upstairs to throw them out because they'd go down the metal staircase and they'd remember not to be thrown out again. I mean, it was Ely in Cardiff is the roughest place. It is still without doubt the roughest place in Cardiff, and it was a place where my dad was a naughty boy. He used to do naughty stuff and he used to sneak out all the time. One of the stories I've been told is like he would tie a string with a polo on the end round my auntie's toe, and she was his younger sister, and he would throw it out the window, and he would go out and he would sell weed all night. He had an Afghan jacket, he'd open it up and inside would be weed hanging from safety pins. I used to get lift home from the cops because all the cops knew the family because they were always going to the pub because there was always a fight kicking off. And he used to go and then he used to just pull the polo and he'd wake my auntie up and she'd sneak downstairs and unlock all the doors and let him in. So their mum and dad didn't know that they were out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, naughty boy. He was a naughty boy. And it was a hard life. I mean, growing up, my dad was a steel worker. So he worked as a wire tester for Allied Steel and Wire. So helped build the Severn Bridge back in the day. My mum used to wash test tubes in the hospital. That was one of her jobs, many crazy jobs she had. And, you know, my house was part full of love and part full of abuse as well. There was a lot of violence.
Like what?
My dad was a very violent man. He was a very angry man. He drank way too much. I mean, there was a drinking problem on that side of the family, probably from growing up in pubs. But my sisters got most of the hit, and they were older than me, and there was a lot of violence in my house when I was young.
Do you drink a lot?
No. I actually didn't drink for about 20 years, mainly because because of all of that. Because when your dad's having like tenant super after tenant super and getting angrier and angrier, you don't really want to drink much.
No. It's two ways it can happen. So I grew up in a dysfunctional home as well. Mum and dad just fighting all the time. I've talked about this in my December podcast live stream where, you know, I went on a retreat, took magic mushrooms. So I've never smoked, never drunk in my life, never taken any drugs. And then I took a hero dose of magic mushrooms and went on a 7-hour trip because that's what you do.
Yeah.
But it helped heal a lot of my trauma that I didn't even really know that I had. Inner child integration. It was quite beautiful.
I changed my life with magic mushrooms.
Yeah, well, guess what? It's so beautiful for me, that experience. Dude, I'm going to be running retreats this year about it. You know, one in the UK, maybe 2 in the UK and one abroad. And I think it's so healing, so powerful. And it's going to be medical help, discussing how to get fit and healthy, Doc Malik's Simple Guide to Good Health, about diet, nutrition, lifestyle factors. I'm going to have people talking about trauma, how to deal with that, someone like Meredith Miller. And then, plant medicine as well. So, you know, how did it heal you? By the way, what I was going to say was, I feel like when it comes to trauma, you can either perpetuate the cycle of trauma or you can say it stops with me.
Yeah.
It stops with me. So well done for stopping with you.
I have to say that it was, I spent a lot of time with anxiety, severe anxiety. I felt very sad about the world. You know, I was a really happy-go-lucky kid, and when my family unit eventually broke apart, it kind of revealed that everything was a bit of a fallacy, that my life was built on falsehoods, and that I wasn't very happy. And so through my 20s, I was really sad. By the time I got to my 30s, I was kind of like, I wanted to opt out. I was on loads of different pills. I was on fluoxetine, clomipramine, metazapine, you know.
Oh, shit.
And then on top of it, I was a rock and roller. I was singing in a band, playing guitar, and so I was taking drugs. And I had a guy in the band who was feeding me drugs. So on top of that, I got up to morphine at one point. And there was no point in even taking morphine because I just take morphine and then I puke. So it ended up on a cycle of sleeping and puking on morphine. And I mean, a lot of that come to a point where I was so sad. It was either I didn't even know what I wanted to do in life. I was just a step away from becoming a journalist, really, but I was too scared to. And I was so sad that I was at the end of my life. I just wanted to end it. So I said, right, I'm going to take go up to the Garth, a hill that's just outside Cardiff, where magic mushrooms grow. And I'm going to pick a massive amount. And I'm just going to spend ages tripping until I don't feel like this anymore. You know, not with people around, not big parties, not anything like that. I just wanted to test out my own mind. I wanted to sit there and understand who I was, where I was going. And so I took really what is about a 3-month hiatus that was dealing with my trauma, talking to myself from when I was a kid while on psychedelics. Sometimes just, you know, in the darkness, thinking about stuff, writing a lot, you know, considering the lilies, just considering everything. I just had to look at everything that gave me trauma through different eyes. And then eventually what I did is I came out the other side like a journalist. I come out the other side like, I don't want to die. Why would I want to die? The fact is that I can just keep going forward and I leave that trauma behind, confront it, get over it, start on the next level. And you don't really ever get over trauma. What you do is you learn how to adapt it in your life to make it into positive.
Yes.
So you start talking with other people, and you start you know I'm the type of person that I start talking with someone and they tell me all of their troubles.
Same.
Yeah. So and then I have the opportunity to help them with their troubles. You know, I stopped taking drugs by instead taking mushrooms to over a like 3-4 day period and not having any drugs. So I did the same with smoking. I took mushrooms for a couple of days. Didn't want to smoke afterwards. You know, I gave up computer games by being on LSD and playing Call of Duty and instantly going, never want to do that again. I knew that would be the point of it as well. You know, I realized that psychedelics was a massive tool to being able to confront things that you cannot confront in reality. And you've got to be careful not to mistake it with like a party time. Oh, we'll all take mushrooms together and etc. You've got to at some point look at yourself through eyes that are outside your normal sphere of thinking.
Dude, yeah, I'm telling you right now, like I don't microdose. I don't do anything like that. I've got no interest in taking magic mushrooms again. To me, it was plant medicine. It was in a retreat. It was beautiful, and I've in that state was told that I need to be a healer and I need to heal people in the same way. It was beautiful and it's respectful. The idea of a party time thing, running around in the streets, and that's horrific. No,
yeah, those were the past. That was the past.
There's no freaking way I would ever do that. I think that's being disrespectful to the medicine, and it's not. That's not me. And the funny thing is, you know, I was worried initially that, oh my god, am I going to become a drug addict? Am I going to change my personality? I haven't changed anything. I'm different. I just love my true inner self. You know, it's all in the podcast explaining what my trauma was.
And until I reached my mid-30s, I had always used magic mushrooms as a party drug. Used psychedelics as a party drug. My first experience on them was crazy because I took an epic dose, one beyond what anybody can imagine. We weren't taught it properly. I just drank a load of muddy mushroom water and had the worst experience ever. And what I'm talking about, the experience I'm talking about that I had later, was such a personal journey to understand myself. I came out the other side not needing to take magic mushrooms, not being on fluoxetine or mirtazapine or clomipramine, not being needing cigarettes.
Exactly.
All possible because I was able to see things from a different perspective.
Yes.
Including not wasting my life, not doing the thing that I needed to do, which was to become a journalist. And I already knew I love history, I love research, I already knew things that other people hadn't worked out yet. And the difference between me before and me after those experiences was that I was able to do those things because I'd left all of that trauma behind me. let all the pain behind me. And now I don't need to do any drugs. I like to smoke weed, but I don't need to. I don't need to take psychedelics. I don't need to take any anti-anxiety or anti-psychotics or anything like that. I'm completely happy. And then from that, about 2 years ago, I started being able to drink again. And recreationally, not go out and get blotto, but have a gin and tonic every now and again and go, oh, that's nice. And not feel like I need more. The mushrooms and psychedelics are a really good way to tackle addiction.
Yes.
And we are addicted to trauma. That's the biggest addiction we have. We make ourselves into these poor little creatures who have been treated badly. Oh, how terrible, woe betide me. Please, everybody give me attention. But really, you leave that behind, start giving other people attention. That's kind of where I got to.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, listen, I want to skirt back a bit. So basically, we both had very difficult upbringings. I grew up in a very rough part of Glasgow, working class, immigrant family. Dad used to be a welder, then a market trader, then a shoe shop and nurse residential home, and lots of other jobs, side jobs here and there. And I used to work weekends with him and after school, as did my siblings. Excuse me. And yeah, it was tough. Like, we didn't have it easy. Holiday was to Pakistan, which was not great. Mosquitoes, electricity cutouts. Just there was not, going to people's houses. It wasn't sightseeing. It's not great. And it was tough as a little kid growing up. And we had to work really hard. And then you become a consultant. You suddenly life is a little bit easier. I always felt life was unnecessarily hard. I felt like everything's a grind. You work so hard, most of it gets taken away by tax, the money that you got left, everything is so expensive. How'd you get ahead? Even as a doctor, as a surgeon, you're working like a hamster wheel, like working day and night to have this quality of life that you think is expected of a surgeon. It's kind of mad, basically. And you look at these people like Bezos and Zuckerberg and, all these other people, and you just think, is it really down to just being really smart and at the right time, at the right place, and you suddenly become this billionaire? Like, wow, like maybe that's the answer. Like, you just have to be really hardworking and really just lucky at the right time. I'm now coming to the idea that a lot of these people are crafted like Tony Starks of the Avengers. It's like they're frontmen of the security intelligence apparatus. The CIA's got tons of money from the fake moon landings, all the wars, the money laundering, the Iran-Contra affair. They sell money and drugs and opium and weapons. They are rich, these security agencies. They got a lot of money. And they then use that money to seed corporations and companies that they think will be useful for them. Like, oh, let's harvest everyone's data. Let's create Facebook, that kind of thing. And then they put frontmen who are the playboy, philanthropists, who are, everybody wants to be like them. But actually, if you look at them, they're not really who we think they are. They're not that lucky. They're not that clever. They haven't really invented anything themselves. Take Musk, for example. He comes from a family they've got mining interests in Namibia or something. I mean, wealthy background. And it's funny how many of these people have got parents or whatever who are in the intelligence or CIA or... Am I right about this? I'm not just making this up, am I?
Definitely not. And when it comes to Musk, it's really...
definitely not the case, or definitely not...
You're definitely not making it up.
Okay.
In actual fact, a lot of these guys go through some form of leadership program. They get noted in universities, and then they get put through programs that are meant for gifted students. But a lot of them have the reason why they're the ones who are selected is because they already have family who are tied up within these groups. So, for instance, with Musk, his grandfather, it was, of course, Joshua Haldeman, who was one of the heads of Technocratic Inc., or Technocrat Inc., which was about creating a technocracy as far back.
That's in
as
Canada.
30s, 40s, 50s.
That's in Canada.
That was his. That was partially his father headed it up.
His father headed it up.
Yeah. And his mum, May Musk, she remolded Elon Musk into being something completely different than he was before. He was
quite goofy and geeky and nerdy, balding, fading hair. Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah, he already looked like he was a geek when he was in university, and that he would end up doing some sort of computer programming job. But she is a fantastic marketer. She turned him into this figure that is, and I describe Elon Musk is kind of like a meme template. You can put any meme over the top of him and suddenly he's cool. And that's partially because his mum remolded him and refashioned him from the mid-90s onwards. May Musk is one of the most important reasons behind Elon Musk rising to power. And her father was so important to technocracy.
May Musk, yeah?
Yeah, and she looks devilish, absolutely devilish.
She looks like that lady out of the
Cruella de Vil.
That's it.
Yeah. I think she's molded herself to be like that as well. She's an incredible woman.
She's very glamorous for 76.
Yeah.
No.
She is very glamorous, but I mean, she's probably got a lot of money. She kept on the right side of her son, that's for sure. Elon Musk only came to power and only got this prominent because of May Musk. His father is really inconsequential in comparison. I'm sorry to say that to you, Errol, but he's not as important in Musk's life and to the creation of the mythos surrounding Musk.
Okay, hold on a second. So May Musk's parents were Winifred Josephine Wynne Fletcher and Joshua Norman Heidelman.
Yep.
So Musk's grandfather and grandmother, Haldeman was a Canadian chiropractor who in the early days, so Musk's grandfather, in the early days of formalized apartheid, moved to South Africa. Joshua Haldeman was a former director of Technocracy Incorporated and a political activist who ran for the Canadian Parliament on the Social Credit Party ticket and headed the Canadian branch of the Technocracy movement.
Yeah, and banned in Canada during the war as well.
Yeah, and Errol Graham Musk is a retired South African engineer. His mother, Coral Musk, was British, and his father, blah, blah, was a South African army sergeant who served as a cryptographer in a military intelligence unit in the Second World War.
Yeah, you got to have the background. You got Elon Musk is an example of, in a sense, good genetics. Mixing to be to allow the creation of a young person who's got the mind that can take in that sort of analytical side. I mean, he's not an idiot.
No, he's not. So, but let's go back to technocracy. I'm really fascinated by this, buddy. So, hold on a sec. So, technocracy is basically a form of government that's run by basically. Here it is. I'm reading it out to you now. Technocracy is a form of government in which the decision makers are selected based on their expertise in a given area of responsibility with regard to scientific or technical knowledge. Technocracy follows largely in the tradition of other meritocratic theories and assumes full state control over political and economic issues. It contrasts with representative democracy. It's not representative. So people are being appointed, technocrats are being appointed by the ultimate rulers to basically manage the system.
And we're seeing it. That's what we see.
And the technocracy movement from America and Canada in the 30s favored technocracy, not democracy, technocracy, as a system of government over representative democracy and partisan politics. So if you've got technocracy, you don't need party politics anymore. You don't need you don't have choice. The plebs aren't voting. You basically have your rulers who are ruling and managing through their management class. The technocrats are basically the management class.
Yeah.
So you got the owners of the world, then you got the managers, and then you got the slaves. Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is, isn't it?
Yes, it's even more so in this era, because in that era they were positing what the future would look like. In where we are now, they know what the technology of the future looks like. This is one of the things I researched during Dr. Klaus Schwab, or How the CFR Told Me to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And it was about how they already mapped out in 1967, 1968, the Hudson Institute, headed by Herman Kahn, mapped out all of the potential technological advances that we're going to see over the next, for as many as they could. They said till the year 2000, but in actual fact, we haven't achieved most of it yet. And a lot of it is, of course, technocratic solutions to take over the control of society from humans. And in actual fact, there's also Kissinger and Schmidt wrote a book in about 2021. And it said basically, we'll be told by the AI eventually how we do, what we should do, how to live our lives. And we won't understand it a lot of the time, but we should do it because it'll know better than us.
Do they genuinely believe this, by the way?
No. What is actually happening is they're the ones programming AI to tell us exactly what they want us to do, and then we're being told to listen to technology until we do. And loads of people do. I thought it would be impossible for people to switch over to that way of thinking. But then I've seen, as AI develops, I see people they use it as a tool to say, oh, look, I've just found the answer. I looked on AI and it told me this, and so this is the answer. And do you realize who's programming that? Who's entering it? We're in artificial narrow intelligence. We're not in artificial super intelligence. It's not like the computer actually knows what's better for us. It is just the ruling class programming the computer to tell us what they want us to do. And at the moment, if you ask it about things like, you ask most AI models about things like Jeffrey Epstein case, and you test out among the different models, some models will just say, oh no, it's best not we don't talk about that. We shouldn't talk about that because it's upsetting for some people. And that's what the future looks like. Oh no, let's not talk about that because you might upset yourself, little child. Because we're the computer telling you that that's what's going to happen. You'll get upset. You don't want to be upset. The ruling class don't want you discussing things. And so they found a way to have a proxy that does that for them. It tells you to stop worrying.
And the problem is people are buying it hook, line, and sinker. You know what? Honestly, it's so much harder on our side, the side of light. The side of darkness is so easy, man, to dupe people and make them do what you want them to do. But to wake people up, to empower people, to get them to save themselves, that's hard. I've been trying to tell people, look, I'm not some Trump doom and gloomer. I find him quite entertaining. It's like he's quite a funny guy. Quite often I'm laughing at him rather than with him. But anyway,
I quite like Trump.
Yeah. But he's been, I think he's crafted. He's an actor. He's actually got an IMDb. You can see with all his roles. I think he's a great actor. I think he's hilarious. But I don't think he is who we think he is, and he's certainly not a savior. And I get really upset, not at him as much as the hopium and the delusion amongst people. Like, oh my God, Trump's won. He's the stuff that I hear is just hilarious. Don't you know all the bad people have already been locked up, and we've just got actors now, and the white hats are going to come out crashing and saving the day. And you know what? We need to do it slowly, because if everybody realised it'd be too much for them, so we need to do it slowly, and it's drip feeding. Or don't you know he needs to create the problem to fix it? Or don't you know he's appointing all these evil people around him because he's going to expose them later on? I mean, it just goes.
Humanity rocking backwards and forwards in a straitjacket.
He's playing 4D, 5D chess, now 6D chess, 7D, 8D chess. He's playing all this chess. He's so great. He's so smart. And he's like dancing like this. He wants to dance like this. He's just cool, right? And he's got this dream team all around him. And it's cool to be supporting him. And if you question him or point at some things that don't sound right, like day 2, he's telling this guy to come on, this Oracle guy, that mRNA vaccines are going to be great for cancer treatment. You're like, what? An AI, 500 billion into AI that's going to look into every aspect of your life. You're like, what? And everybody's like, no, it's 5D chess. And you're like, wake up, folks. Like, how? I'm not the enemy. Don't shoot me. Like, I'm trying to help you guys. I'm on your side. I'm not the bad guy. But for doing that, for saying that, guess what? A lot of people on our side take shots at you and go, you're just a party pooper. You're horrible. You're mean. Why are you saying these things about our savior? And you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, they're people who are trying to manipulate which direction the revolutionary movement heads, and they use propaganda to do that. And the propaganda nowadays is thick, and it's easy for us to see through because we've accepted that people, the people in power, are not who they say they are. A lot of people haven't accepted that. A lot of people, the majority of people out there, are desperate. They're primed to look for the fairy tale.
Okay.
They're primed to see one big major. I just want to say Slavoj Zizek. He's an interesting.
I don't know who Slavoj Zizek is.
He's an interesting social philosopher, commentator. He did a one movie called Pervert's Guide to Ideology, and I'd suggest everybody watch that. It's a really interesting bit about Jaws, about how humans have this habit of bundling up all of their fears into one thing that they can kill, or one savior that can help them, change the whole world. And in actual fact, it's lots of different fears, lots of different people, but we're constantly looking for either that savior or that one massive enemy that can be destroyed and set us free. None of that exists. Humanity is a struggle from time immemorial. We've been going through this life, and we've been struggling generation after generation to survive power, politics, war, evil people, and it's not going to change for our children either, or their children. Humans will still be humans in 100 years' time as they has been like 1,000 years ago. So
2,000 years ago, 3,000. The same shit's been going on.
Same stuff.
I don't think we're ever going to get off this planet, like transcend, until everyone understands and stops being like this.
We're never going to get to that point.
You never think so?
Never, ever, ever, ever.
You think you're stuck in clown world forever?
I think that we're slowly going towards replacing ourselves with transhumans. I think that over time, technology will.
Do you think it'll be LGBTQ plus tech?
I think that, that itself, the LGBTQ plus stuff, is about getting humans ready for the fact that we are about to change all of our social paradigms, all of our ideas of what humanity is, for these people who want to create a new race of all-powerful beings that will travel everywhere and do everything, where in actual fact we're putting all our eggs in a technological basket, which it will eventually be easy to destroy itself.
Do you genuinely think they believe all this? Like, they genuinely believe that, you can upgrade humanity and improve? Is that what they think? Yeah. Or do you think it's nefarious and they just want to get most of us lined up, and they'll be eating the steak, we eat the crickets, they'll be staying 100% pure, human beings. We'll be the ones with chips and things. Do you think Elon Musk would put a chip in his brain if it was all working? Do you think they would do that as well?
Okay, so there's levels to this, real significant levels. Yes, I do believe that they believe the future generations will, because I believe the future generations will as well, because that's how technology works. I don't think any.
You just talk for yourself, man.
Yeah. I know. But this is my own personal belief, my own personal opinion is that we create even more dangerous tech. We create things like Bill Gates wants, where you have swarms of things, nanobots that you can't see. We're done. As soon as we got people creating that stuff, we're done. Those people are going to continue to get more malevolent, and the technology is going to continue to get worse and worse as it goes. But I don't think Musk thinks he's going to live on Mars. I don't think Musk really believes that they're going to get to probably living on Mars within his generation. But he's convincing everybody else, because he knows generationally the next generation may, or the next generation may.
So they genuinely believe all this. They haven't even been to the moon yet.
They listen. Did Kissinger?
What's that Van Allen belt, radiation belt? We haven't even figured out how to get humans out of that yet.
Kissinger Did he believe the things that he's created? Like, he created large parts of the paradigms we exist in today, and he's not around anymore. These guys create the paradigms of the future generations, not only their generations.
Do they actually genuinely believe it all?
I believe they do. I believe that Kissinger thought he was doing the right thing. That he was the pragmatic guy who would do the things that needed to be done that no one else would do. And all you need is one person to have that mindset. And the current system means that they get pushed to the top, and then they make the decision, and so they make it happen. They make manifest the thing that they believe to happen because they have the most potential to make it happen.
All right, this is a bit weird. This is getting really deeply philosophical now, but I'm going to ask you something. Are the ruling predator class basically just a reflection of the rest of humanity, and are we just a reflection of them? And what I mean by that is, they do a lot of evil stuff and bad stuff. Are we just as guilty? Like, we're divided, we're quick to hate and not take responsibility. We're lazy. We give away our responsibility without working hard and doing the right thing ourselves. Look at the doctors; they didn't really rise up and say, this is wrong. The police officers went, no, we're not doing this. We're not enforcing this garbage. They all went along. What I'm trying to say is, a lot of good people did a lot of bad things. And most of the bad stuff that happened in this world were by normal, decent folk. So do you see what I mean? Like, there's a mirror of evil and badness in us. And equally, maybe the people right at the top that we think are evil, maybe they genuinely think they're doing good. Maybe they think, we're billionaires, we're rich. We're smart. We're smarter than these other idiots. They're so gullible. Look at them fighting and squabbling and taking drugs and getting pissed and raping each other. We're better than them. We'll sort everything out. We know what's best. I'm just saying, it's messed up, isn't it?
Listen.
We're linked to them. We are them and they are us.
We are humans, dude. And humans are so fallible. They make so many mistakes. We are all just standing there in the cave, looking at the reflection of our father's face in the mirror. And that goes back onwards over time. We don't escape the past. We are part of the past. All of those ancestors that came before us, we're part of them. And we're the same as them. We're humans. Humans make terrible mistakes based upon the fact that they don't want to make the same mistakes of the past. So they end up projecting those mistakes out into the future.
Yeah.
Just exactly the same. We're humans. And humans, there's no point where we're going to find the perfect person who's going to help us out, or the perfect person who's going to sort it all out for us. It's going to be hard for us to sort it out. Everything we do is going to be hard because we're humans.
But I'm positive that humans will actually advance to a point where we get out of this shit show. I am being serious about that. Johnny, I think we are. We're going, there will be a time when we'll look back and go, God, we really were a bunch of monkeys, weren't we? Look at us. And I don't think we'll have chips and robotic and this and that. I just don't feel that's the way. I feel that will be a dead end route for some of humanity. It'll be a dead end route, and I think there'll be another fork of humanity that'll go back that will literally transcend. There will be a higher vibration frequency. They will not be like us. They will not be messy. I don't know. I'm hopeful.
I don't want to be a negative.
Because there's a lot of humanity that's beautiful. Man, we create so much beauty. There's so much love,
so much destruction,
charity, and we are kind. We're caring.
We hate.
This is
we are humans, man. Everything that we do that's positive, we also are negative. That's not going to leave us behind. We're not going to find a panacea to stop people being dicks. People will continue to be dicks in the future generations, just as they are now.
I just think there'll be less dicks.
Okay, so one thing I say, I don't want to be a negative Nancy about this. I don't want to be running around saying, it's the end of humanity and we haven't got a hope. Of course we got hope, but the hope is to recognize that we're humans. The hope is to recognize that we're both positive and negative. That what we project forward is what we have got given. So at the moment, at this current point in time, if we can continue forward with these people in charge, with this paradigm in place, and using logical fallacies after logical fallacies to keep ourselves sweet and falling asleep at night. Yeah. If we continue along that route, we're dead as a doornail. If we don't, at some point, we're able to accept our weaknesses and our strengths in a way that also allows us to say, well, we're not going to be made fools of or taken advantage of. If we can do that, then yeah, we could survive. We could have a wonderful world. But for that, the negative has got to outweigh the positive, and the positive has got to outweigh the negative, and the positive has got to be in control. And the problem is positive people don't tend to seek control. So that might be the biggest shift. The biggest shift is that currently, right now, the world that is being created, they find the people with the lowest ethics or morals, or at least low enough that they can make the decisions that other people won't make if they care about fellow humans. And we've got to get to a point where the people who are training up the leadership groups are choosing the positive people, who are choosing the people who care for humanity. And that's I mean, at the moment, that's a fairy tale. And we've got to make that ourselves. And I don't see how we're going to do it if we continue on the path we're currently on.
So what are actions that people can take? How can we dig ourselves out of this hole?
Oh.
I mean, what I mean by, and also the mirrors of the ruling predator class and us, is the fact that we can't blame everything on them. We need to take responsibility. We need to stop being hoodwinked. We need to snap out of the stupor and go for the lazy option and get distracted by the TV and the drugs and the vapes and the celebrity nonsense. And do you see what I mean? Like, we need to up our game.
We've been talking about this.
We need to up our game.
We've been talking about this. Maybe we haven't completely realized it, but we need to foster a humanity that doesn't mind being challenged and can get over their own ego.
Yeah.
What we're currently in is a place where we don't like to be challenged. So what they've done is, and this is systematic, over the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they took out a load of philosophy out of the schooling for young people. So you no longer learned about Greeks or Roman philosophers. You didn't learn that Marcus Aurelius would say, at the end of the day, think from a bird's eye view, look down upon yourself and follow your entire day through and see which decisions you made, which were good, and consider the ones that were bad. We no longer learn about those sort of things because they try to stop them being challenged. They take out our ability to reason, our ability to use logic. So it all comes down to education. Again, I say, educated man will tell the government what to do, and the government get the bohemians to do it. The way to break that cycle is become the academics who say, we're going to teach everything.
Yes.
Not just what benefits us and stops us from being challenged. And the challenge is all about the ego. That's all about the ego. I do a load of street photography. I do police auditing. So I go around with a camera and I follow the police around in city centres, look for a little bit of trouble. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. And I talk with loads of different people. And once people get stuck in their ego, they become monsters. And the majority of people who rise to the top are the most monstrous because they are not in control of their ego. They don't know how to control their ego. And they can, like what I was saying about Eric Weinstein earlier, they can't admit when they're wrong.
Yeah.
They can't just say, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I often say,
that's a bad sign when someone says they don't know, when they can't say they don't know.
Yeah.
And another one is when they can't say, I'm sorry.
You're completely. And all of
those two things.
Those two things are inextricably linked. You cannot say you're sorry if you are unwilling to accept that you can be at fault. And that fault comes, that inability to take that in comes from the ego. And that ego is out of control. Human ego. We're pumping up people with out of control egos and we're lifting them up into society because we want to see the flair. We want to see the pizzazz. We want everything to be excited. So we do it to ourselves.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And we need to teach that in schools. We need to go down to level where kids are learning how to control their ego. Can you even imagine what that would be like in school? Were you ever taught on how to control your ego in school? Yeah, it's the most important thing in your life.
We don't get taught anything. I'm going to put on my special voice. I think what you just said about the ego is just so profound.
Oh, that's a sexy voice.
It's really gravelly. But basically, it's all about... I need to do a shout out to Harry. Harry, my friend from Jiu-Jitsu, I've just been helping him, and he said, I want to help you back. I said, oh, can you do a little voice intro saying support Doc Malik? He's got the most beautiful voice. He's got this lovely English voice. He's got this floppy hair. Harry, I just love him. He's just such a good kid. And he's in his 20s, so I can say, I think he's in his 20s, or has he just turned 30? Oh, God. But anyway, he's still a baby. He could be my son. He's a lovely boy, and he's a poet. And he's gifted with the most beautiful voice. So it's in the intro now and mid-roll about just saying, hey, support Doc Malik. So I just want to say thanks to Harry for doing that for me. It's really nice. He's a really good egg. But yeah, I mean, like, I was just joking putting on that voice. I think the thing about the ego is so right. Like, I just find that a lot of people who are quick to anger are deeply insecure, and that's their ego. Their ego, and a lot of people who inflate their ego is coming from insecurity to mask. People are really comfortable within themselves in their little meat suit. They're like, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Like, do you see what I mean? The attitude to being told about something that they weren't aware of is like, wow, I'm interested to learn about that. I don't know that. Or they'll turn around and go, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Ran into a problem, messed up. Do you mind? I'm going to fix this. They're just very chill, whether it's a plumber or a surgeon. But someone who's insecure, someone who's got an ego problem, they'll be like, no, there's no problem. I never did anything. It's your fault. It's not me. You can see the ego coming out all the time, everywhere. Like the logical fallacies, you can see the ego. And I just feel like more people need to tame their ego. And maybe the magic mushrooms can help with that. I think it does. Because I've felt I was battling my ego in that dream state. And I was really like, I have met my ego. It was whispering voices to me. And I actually defeated it with love. Do you know that? That's how I defeated it. The war against the ego. It was when I accepted it. I said, it's all right. It's okay. I'm not upset with you. I'm not angry with you. I know this is what you're meant to do. I forgive you. I love you. And it just went, boom, disappeared. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. And that idea of, and it's a really simple one. You don't know everything. And as soon as you accept fully, really accept, because it's really hard to accept, as soon as you accept that you don't know everything, you suddenly become wiser than anybody around you. You become wiser because you're like, oh, I can be wrong. I can say the wrong thing. I can do the wrong thing. And then I can apologize for it afterwards and say, I'm only a human. I continue to walk forward. I continue to learn. I will say one thing. I think there's probably correlation between the rise in autism and Asperger's especially, and that inability to control the ego. I think there's even for the establishment a bonus in having people on the autistic spectrum who are highly functioning. Doesn't matter how many people that you cause to be outside of society, non-verbal, etc. If you can create those Elon Musk types, Mark Zuckerberg types, who don't have the heart, can never admit necessarily that they're completely wrong.
Zuckerberg did. He said, look, we were censoring, it was kind of bad, and we're not going to do that anymore. It's their fault. It wasn't our fault.
Yeah, but he knew he was wrong at the time.
I know. It was a BS apology. I mean, it wasn't even an apology. I mean, it's just complete nonsense. I've grown my hair out. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm one of the lads. Forgive me. I'm like, I ain't going to fly.
Looks like Android 2.0, right?
I still get censored on YouTube. So Substack automatically now uploads my podcast to YouTube. And I've had recent, so what I'm trying to say is censorship is still alive and kicking. And what was really funny is I did a video literally 3 years ago this week where I went on GB News talking about the mandates and how wrong they were and unethical. And I was like, where can I find this? And I found it on YouTube on the GB News channel or something. I download it, okay, and I republish it. And YouTube takes it off. saying it's medical misinformation. And I'm like, hold on a second. I actually got this video from your channel. And now you're telling me what's that all about? And then I realized, okay. So there are some acceptable channels that they have left alone and they won't come down heavy on, and they're serving a purpose. I'm clearly marked. And there's a reason why I stopped uploading on my podcast, because they were always being withdrawn. But now because it's automated, I don't mind. Like, it's literally a click button on and off. I go, yeah, let's see if it goes up or not. I literally just press the button. And it's being taken down all the time. And I realized my channel was marked. I'm marked. They're censoring my content. It's still alive and kicking. You know?
There is an interesting thing that happened to me related to this that I went on Rhinoformic to talk about the Wellcome Trust and the heads of the Wellcome Trust and how they were heavily involved in the more conspiratorial side of the COVID affair. You know, people like Jeremy Farrar, Richard Sykes, Neil Ferguson, others. And it was a really interesting conversation. But Rhinoformic, of course, he was seen as evil by YouTube. Yeah, I uploaded it onto YouTube. And nothing was said. There was no strikes and nothing. It was up there for a year. A year later, I'm opening my Rumble channel. I upload it to Rumble, and it's got a little tick box. It says, has this also been uploaded to YouTube? And I clicked yes. I don't know why I clicked yes, why I give them information. Press next. Instantly, literally instantly, a YouTube notification come through. Boom, they pulled a Rhinoformic interview that's been up for a year for medical misinformation.
Oh, wow.
It was instantaneous. I upload it to Rumble, tick the box, boom, boom, boom. Rumble working with YouTube. Peter Thiel working with the other side. Now that
is Peter Thiel behind Rumble?
Yes, he's one of the ones who was founded Rumble, or like financed it at least. But Thiel's guys definitely behind Rumble.
Wow.
And instantaneous, linked with YouTube, unbelievable.
So what channel is a good one? Odyssey, BitChute, you know.
I'm on. I personally, I'm on. I upload to YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, and X, and that's basically it at the moment. I don't. Rockfin, I think that's ending. I think it's slowly filtering out. I'm a little bit suspicious. I saw it set up and I seen the way it went. I was a bit suspicious by it, especially now. There's a lot of people asking questions about it. And some of the, I had a special insight into it. I saw somebody else applying for a channel who was quite a big shot. I won't say their name. But I saw the conversation they had with the person behind the scenes and it was like a guy in his car who didn't really care. He slouched back, and it reeked of agency nonsense. That's all I'll say. I think we got to be really knowledgeable by our experience, given to us by our experience, that social media platforms and video platforms, if they get that big, they're probably not to be trusted. As simple as it is.
Am I never going to get big?
Well, maybe.
I want to get big purely because I've got an ego and I want to be the best at everything. No, I'm just joking. I want to get big because I want to inform and educate as many people as possible.
Okay.
What's the point of having a podcast when you speak to two people listening? Do you see what I mean? Like,
really massively important. This is happening now, right now. We're properly entering into 5th generation warfare. It was always coming, but now it'll be, and I really do believe this, they will open up everything. There will be no censorship. It will shock people. It will surprise people. It will fill up with, they will especially push things that are hard to watch, hard to look at, hard to believe, and
like
not
what?
true.
Like what?
Like you remember BitChute, Did you ever upload to BitChute?
No.
Okay, BitChute's a platform that it got banned under Twitter in a sense. It got banned. They put a little warning that you're going outside and you're going to a separate thing. But that got filled up with not only truthers, but there were all of the Nazi guys on there, all of the other people who were saying terrible, awful things.
Really?
Yeah. But that's what happens when it all opens up. It's that everybody gets a voice, and everybody getting a voice, however much we want no censorship to exist, is very uncomfortable, even for people like us. We're like, oh God, did they just say that? Oh my God, do they believe that? Oh, that's what fifth generation warfare will do to you. It'll give you an emotional reaction. Is suddenly the things that you don't expect people to say. People are about to, can you imagine? You're in a normie world where you believe what's said on Facebook,
and the Guardian, and the BBC
is telling you truth, and then suddenly everything you get exposed to everything all at the same time.
It's going to be painful.
It's going to be. It's psychological warfare. It's taking people, shifting people from a paradigm which is completely controlled
and fake and false,
to one that's. There's zero control, and there's loads of truth in there, but it's hard to find the truth amongst some of the most visceral and awful. Because when we choose what we want to watch, fights, sexual content, fight. That's what people are doing now. They're like, ooh, like when I put out content, if I put out something that's sensible and clever, it'll get the least likes. What gets likes is a police officer shouting at someone in a shop shouting at somebody else, a load of police officers all arguing.
Yeah, it's like for example, like some of the conversations we're having, like this one. Profound conversations, deeply important that everyone should be listening about. Hardly any listening, views or whatever. But you know what? If you've got some stupid cat video or some celebrity garbage, hundreds of thousands of likes. That's what people. But
I'm a sucker for cats.
but again, this is what I mean by people. People are choosing. Men are choosing to suck cherry vapes and watch girls dance. What the like, be a man, like, lift weights, eat meat, go out and hunt, or, shoot a gun or whatever, bow and arrow. Like, what are you doing sucking on a cherry vape?
Fifth generation warfare, my friend.
So before we talk about fifth generation warfare, the thing that you mentioned about the autism business, I think you're 100% right. What also drugs do, like the SSRIs, they make you not feel anything. And so many people are on SSRIs. Some people are like, in some populations, up to 10%. And when you take these drugs, they stop you from feeling. You don't feel sad anymore. You don't feel anxious anymore. But guess what? You don't feel happy anymore either. You don't feel joy anymore. Everything's just blank. Everything's grey. Everything's all right, yeah, okay. Oh, government's locking us down. Yeah, I'm not angry about it. Well, it's just the government. All right. You become passive. Like, you're just so easily manipulatable and controllable. So you've got all these drugs that people are on now that are literally just making them walking zombies. You've got society and the food that we're eating that is just making us zombies. The dopamine hits from social media is making people zombies. We're all just becoming zombified. Just feeling nothing. Just passive. All right, okay. Feeling nothing. Oh, right, all right. Like true emotion, feeling, passion, it's getting sucked out of us. It's quite sad. And I think that you're right. It's all about that kind of population is easier to control. They're not going to be the ones who are revolutionaries. And coming back to that, you know what? I think we need a revolution. And I don't want to get done for incitement or violence or anything. But I don't believe in the ballot paper, like getting us out of this. I don't believe in saviors and billionaires and oligarchs getting out of it. I think it's going to be revolution. We need to overthrow these bad people. And how it looks and what it looks like, I don't know. I'm just saying, I think we need a revolution. Anyway, moving on. You're going to talk about fifth generation warfare. Like, what is that all about?
Wow, fifth generation warfare is pretty heavy.
Because you mentioned it a few times on the drive here and now.
Basically, fifth generation warfare is where it's a psyop war. So warfare will no longer be fought on the battlefield. And we're coming up to this point now. I mean, can you imagine a load of AI drones? What you're seeing over in Ukraine at the moment, you're seeing a video of a guy, he's sitting in some sort of like
bunker
hole in the ground.
Yeah.
He's looking at something on his phone or something like that. And then suddenly a drone comes along and he disappears. The puff of smoke is as quick as can be.
It's horrific.
There's going to be no point in fighting physical wars anymore. What's the point in fighting physical wars? It'll just end up soon. It'll end up with drones fighting each other in the sky. And then it'll be like, oh, well, globalism's in now, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Because there's one country. It's not like we're fighting each other anymore.
No. So what does that mean? The idea is that psychological warfare and manipulating people using behavioral insights and the like, psy wars are going to be the thing of the future. If they can make you fear or hate or love using carefully constructed AI videos or the like, or even just pumping the right people in your face.
Even just saying the right things.
They could make
40 babies raped and beheaded in Israel.
They will get.
I know. What emotion does that pull up?
Yeah. And once they know how to control that emotion, how to move that emotion, and this is what, when I wrote...
Are you questioning 40 babies? Do you not have a soul? You don't care about 40 babies being murdered and decapitated? You sick, evil mother. Like, I mean, this is how it works. And then when you try and logically say, listen, guys, we've been here before, the Kuwait, Iraq war, Gulf War, they were like, the Kuwaitis apparently said the babies had been thrown out the incubators. It was all a lie. Maybe it's that. Maybe we don't know the facts. How dare you at this moment even start to question it, you sick. Like, you should be like angry and saying, go get them. And the famous commentators, give him hell.
What you're saying,
do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah. What you're saying there, that is the bullets of fifth generation warfare. These ideas that this has happened, they can tell us lie after lie after lie after lie. As soon as it's sold to you in a quick video, you don't even know it's true or not, and people are losing their ability to understand what is truth and what is lie anyway. And when we come to this point, there's not going to be bullets flying physically, it's going to be mental bullets, and that's fifth generation warfare. You do not know. It's going to be military grade psyops, so you do not even know what's real or not anymore. Soon, your entire world could be created out of AI and you wouldn't even know it. Your leaders don't really exist. We're already feeling that now, where the people are saying, oh, these people are all actors, they don't really exist, that person doesn't exist, that's made up by AI.
The white hats have saved us.
In the future, those are going to be partly true. There's going to be people who don't even exist. There's going to be people who there's something happening. Last year, the beginning of last year, I was on the Epstein Files X Spaces with some of the big guys. Boosted my follower count up by quite a lot because suddenly they let me out, and I found it very suspicious. They let me on quite a big platform and talk about these things.
What platform were you on?
It was on X. It was one of the X Spaces, but it was one of the big ones, Mario Nawfal ones, and they all went down with Elon Musk.
Which one, sorry?
Mario Nawfal. You know him? Well, anyway, when I went on there, I heard Elon Musk speaking, and he was under a name Adrian Dittman, and I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds like it's Elon Musk, and that must be one of his fake accounts. And he talked like Elon Musk. His intonation was like Elon Musk. Everything was like Elon Musk. He was also recently bought X. He's pushing out the X Spaces. He's telling them what to do. He's giving them directions and how to do the space, and then he leaves. And the person who told me, oh, there's an X Space, you should go and see if they want you on there, originally also messaged me and was like, that was Elon Musk then. And it's this account, Adrian Dittman.
Dittman?
Yeah. And so Adrian Dittman, it became this thing where everybody was like, who is Adrian Dittman? He's not saying who he is. He's not showing his real face. And we don't know who he is. So who is this? And I was like, well, this is Elon Musk. I don't see why he's... Then I heard him another time, Adrian Dittman.
He's got 382 followers.
And he was, I don't know if you've got the right...
Adrian Dittman, 69. Okay, maybe that's not the right one.
But the point of this is really important.
Yeah, go.
So I don't think that Adrian Dittman was a real person. I think he's an AI glove. I've called it an AI glove. So I think that people like Elon Musk can use an AI glove, go in, it changes their voice slightly, it allows them this separate persona, and other people can embody that AI glove. So it's not just Elon Musk. So you're listening to Elon Musk speaking. You're like, well, that definitely sounds like Musk there. And then 2 weeks later, he sounds slightly different, and it can also eventually work on its own.
You are kidding.
So you don't know who anybody is. You won't even know if the voice speaking is really the person, or is a selection of people, or if
or me,
or if it even
is it even
exists.
Doc Malik? Is it?
Or is it just AI on its own? Because sometimes I've listened to Adrian Dittman and I'm like, that's not a human. It's just a selection of sound bites that is someone's pressing on a board. I think that this is part of fifth generation warfare, not knowing what's real or not. Thinking you know what's real, and then realizing, oh, wait a minute, all it takes... The use of AI now is going to go out of control.
But you know what? I've got a really simple antidote to all of this.
Go on then.
No, I kid you not. Every single time I go, what the frack is going on? I go, you know what? I'm going to step out my door. I'm going to look up at the sky. I'm going to look at the trees. I'm going to look at the birds. I'm going to go for a walk in the woods. This is all real. And it's so beautiful. Being in nature and connecting with real and meeting someone in person, which is why one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast in person. Now, if you remember, I was kind of like, Johnny, I want to do it in person. And, you know, I know you've had to take the coach here and pay to come here. And I'm very grateful. Yeah, but I'm being serious. Like, we could have done this. It would be a lot more convenient and easy doing it virtual, online. But isn't this infinitely better in person? So you're real. AI can't make you.
I agree.
This is how I combat all that. Trying to get offline and live in reality rather than virtual reality. Because they can't replicate this. They can't replace this.
At the moment.
They won't do it.
Oh, wait, what? You're
what? I'm going to walk out and be surrounded by AI.
Okay, so 10, 15 years, you're going to walk along. There's going to be a bird in the tree. Is it really a bird, or is it looks like a bird, sounds like a bird, acts like a bird, but it's actually got a camera in it, it's watching you? Is it? No, seriously, I'm serious. There's already that technology already exists. They already use that technology, but it's at a lower level than it will be in 5 years' time. And this is the point. We're coming to a time when our reality, even our lived reality, can be altered. I say the same thing as you. I say people should go and they should mix with each other in real life. That's the best way to know. And currently it is.
You don't want a girl robot?
No, I don't think so. It depends how good they are. I mean, come on. Are they actually gonna leave me be for a bit?
She's not gonna nag you. She's not gonna complain about.
It's a lie. She
won't tell you how to load the dishwasher.
That's a lie. They will be made to do exactly what women do. They will be made. Sorry to say this to all the women who are listening, but they will be made to manipulate you to do things that they think are the right thing. To do the dishes properly, to clean up the bedroom, to be a good guy in so many different ways that a woman wants will be exactly the same thing that some sort of sex bot will be trained in doing. It will be trained to try and make you behave yourself. It will be trained, it will have a little feed that will slowly, using careful language, give you a different reasoning of why you like this person or why you don't like this person. It will be a propaganda bot sitting in your house telling you how to live your life without you even realizing it's doing it, because it's so advanced that
it'll be so hot.
And in the future again, this thing, they've already talked about this. It won't be a bot. It'll be in your head. It'll be just an implant that sits there, probably injectable. Could and it'll be your symbiote. It'll be whatever. It'll be telling you certain parts of your life. AI, the future, what they say is going to happen is really crazy. It's like you've got something attached to you permanently that's living parts of your life and doing parts of things for you. And if it was gone, you wouldn't even know how to do life normally.
Yeah, and that's how they'll hook you in. I can't believe we were talking about sex bots a second ago. But basically, and I can't believe that they'll...
It's your mind.
Well, it was you. I can't believe they'll also even capture the sex bot to make it like control you in some way. But it makes complete sense that they'll have something in you that actually is so good for you. Like the phone, like it's so useful. Like how do we communicate? We got in touch and it's useful. And you'll have this thing inside your head that's organizing your life and it's, you know, booking things for you. And you'll be like, hey, can you book some flights? And that's running in the background. Hey, Johnny, it'll be a nice sexy voice. Hey, Johnny, I got your tickets booked or something.
Wow.
Something like that in the background. And you'll be like, I can't live without Clarissa in my brain. Clarissa in my brain.
One day it'll just sound like Douglas Murray.
I'll be like, Johnny, you've been misbehaving, Johnny. But you know, yeah, and then you won't be able to live without this freaking implant in your brain. You're right. Oh, it's terrifying. You know, can I ask you something? Why are you doing what you're doing right now? With your brain and imagination, you should be working for the dark side. I mean, you could be like, hey guys, this is what we need to do. Like, this is going to go down. Let's do it this way. Like, you never think like your mind, the way you think. Like, I don't know. I'm just, you're looking into the darkness quite a bit there.
There's two things. Number one, if I wasn't doing this, no doubt I would be on minimum wage. No one would let me up at high level. No one. I ask too many questions. I way too many questions. And then I say no too, which is something that they don't like. And all through my life, you know, the control structures, the power structures, they know that. They've noticed that about me. They know that I'm going to say no. No, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Every job, from the first time I had a job, I'd be sitting in offices where I'm like saying, no, this isn't me. This is definitely you. And the bosses would be going, rah, rah. They'd like, everybody else crumbles under the pressure. But it's like, I'm not going to play ball at all at any time. And I don't really take either side. What I tend to do is hover above the top and try and look at what everybody's arguments are and realize that it's just humans being humans with each other. And I go about things my own way. So I don't know. All
right, cool. Right, listen, I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah, okay,
humans being human.
I'd love to be Darth Vader, but I just don't think it's happening for me.
All right. Well, listen, last question of the day. Do you know what that is?
Go on then.
You don't know, do you?
Go on.
I see you've never listened to my podcast.
No, I've listened to some of them, yes.
Yeah, well, you never listened to the end.
Oh, it's hard listening to podcasts.
What's the Douglas Murray voice coming back on for that?
Like, yeah, I know. Go on.
So, young man, you're on your deathbed.
I have it.
It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. Before you die and meet your maker, what words of wisdom, advice would you say to your loved ones before you depart?
Exactly what we've talked about in this episode.
Would you just say, listen to Doc Malik's podcast episode where I went, episode number, da-da-da-da-da.
No, I would say, be wrong. Be happy to be wrong, because, you know, it's as good as being right. You learn as much from accepting that you're wrong to accepting that you're right. Full stop. Let the ego go. Let the whole feeling that you're the most important person in the world. You are the center of your own universe. For that reason, don't make your universe a lie. Don't make your universe some type of place which is completely fraudulent and built on sand. Make it something strong. Make it something that's beautiful. Make it something that's true. That's all. That's it.
Congratulations. That was a completely unique answer. Never been given before. I love it. Well done. Listen, I really enjoyed your time. Tell me how long it took you to get down here from Wales.
4.5 hours.
On a coach. So you took a coach to Heathrow Airport and then out here to High Wycombe, and I came and picked you up. Mate, thanks for doing that.
That's all right. I only got up at 4:30 in the morning. It's fine.
4:30 in the morning. Oh,
Welsh people get up at 4:30 all the
oh
time.
dude, you know what? We forgot to mention one thing. I was going to ask you, do you have this grooming business in Wales where you are?
I think that it's less exposed, and at some point, lots of people will speak about it. I think, to be perfectly honest, there's a load of human males groom young girls and young boys. This is something that's happened since the dawn of time, and I think there's a systematic issue with us being able to challenge this sort of behavior, especially amongst communities which we perceive as being foreign, or we're not allowed to criticize because you'll be seen as racist or whatever. I think there's a lot of those problems. I've had people contact me, and I've looked into things in my own area, and I've never found anything systematic yet. But hey, I used to live in a rough area of Cardiff, and I'd go past the local kebab shop, and it would be full of guys who were all showing off to very young teenage girls. I walked past one bus stop with a group of guys outside who were all they were locals. I don't know. They were from all different places in the world, and they were chatting up little girls in their school uniform. And I remember this was a fair few years, but it's about 15 years ago. And I went home and I had a hurley, which is a stick used in hurling, an Irish sport. And I chased them down the street with it. I was like a madman. I was so angry. With them. But I think eventually
we need more people like that.
Yeah, but I think that
we need more men to be angry like that.
Yeah, well,
where are the men?
I think they're at home expecting that their daughter's going to bring up themselves. Sit.
Oh man, it's a bit sad. Okay, I just suddenly remembered.
Yeah, that's a sad way to end.
Yeah, we can't end on that sad note. Right. Well, listen, I'm going to cook you up some food. We're going to have some meat and eggs and stuff. Let's end somewhere happy. You don't have any dietary requirements, do you?
No.
So, what's your favorite meal? I mean, if you could have one last meal, what would it be? What would you like?
Oh, that's really hard. You wouldn't be able to do it in this time. I would say it would probably be a nice thick lasagna.
Fake lasagna?
Thick.
Oh, thick. I'm like, fake? Why do you want fake lasagna?
Big, thick lasagna or tagliatelle, carbonara.
I do love a lasagna. My wife makes a cracking one. Absolutely cracking. And garlic bread. Yeah, definitely. All the sauce too that you can mop up.
Mind you, a madras with peshawari naan is always...
Do you know, I just can't find a decent curry house. They all cook in seed oil. You all just, when you eat it, you just go, eh. I don't know, I just can't find good curry houses. Constantly disappointed.
The last good one I had closed down, so...
Well, listen, I'm starving, so let's go. All right? Listen, everyone listening, thank you so much. Johnny, where can people find you?
So if you want to see my work, best place is newspaste.com. There's links at the top that can find ways of supporting me, but also find other links. But newspaste.com is the main place. You type that in anywhere online and you'll probably find it as well.
Awesome, possum. Listen, thank you so much, Johnny.
Lovely.
And you're welcome back here anytime. I, Ahmad Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts, and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations, and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only. Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence, and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and/or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.